Is Brad Stine Has Issues, and this is my song. Hey folks, it's God's Comic Brad Stine, and this is 7 o'clock Monday. Brad Stine Has Issues, where comedy, conservatism, and Christianity collide in a cacophony of clarity. It's a big night. It's a Monday night, getting chilly, but here we sit. Thanksgiving is gone. Christmas is on its way, and Wyatt is behind the helm. Son, how are you doing, and what are you screwing up now?
Well, you almost tripped me up with the theme song. I know you said it was gonna happen quick, but you didn't give me any chance of warning. I basically didn't have time to set up the YouTube feed. Because,
What?
well, I mean, I got it in like 3 seconds before you said hit the theme song, but, you know.
Well, listen, you got to understand something. I'm just thinking there's going to be tons and tons, and I mean tons of people who have never seen my show, Brad Stine Has Issues, and so they need to know that there's a song to go with it. They need to know that I'm here, because they come on. You know why they come on to see me, White? Do you know why they come on?
For the theme song?
No. They come on because they want to see me as a comedian that they watch on stages doing comedy stuff, and now they want to see the real me, just the regular old me, just the peasant me, White. And I am a peasant in a certain way. I mean, I've always considered myself incredibly down to earth. Wyatt, when you think of down to earth, don't you think me?
There are many things that make me think you.
Give me an example.
Oh, I'm not too sure if that's going to be healthy for your, for people's impressions of you.
Well,
let's see, dopey, random, but like not the good random. Let's see, clumsy, tech idiot. Oh, I can go on.
Hey, what?
I don't have to, unless you want me to.
Did I mention to you that Aaron Oakes is on first?
Oh, yeah, you don't remember that? You said that like Neville.
Yeah, missed last week when I'm back. Hey, Brad, Wyatt, and everyone here. Rebecca Daly Dwyer, hailed from Bellefonte, Pennsylvania. Hello to Wyatt also. Praying for you. And, of course, they always do. She says the same thing every time. I wanted to mix it up next time, if you would, Rebecca. Jim Bronow, good evening, Brad and Wyatt. Ninja Cats, good evening, Brad. You freaking rock. Wyatt, do you think I rock or do you think I freaking rock?
Yeah, I'd say rock is the more close to those two things. I am concerned that Nick Kress is nowhere to be found.
Oh, my goodness.
He's not even watching.
You got to be kidding. He's not. Him and Kerry Tudor aren't watching us?
No.
That's weird. Aaron Oakes, a highlight of my week. Marcia Pointer Reed, good evening, Brad and White, and all. Aaron Oakes, hi, Karen. He's Karen talking. Deanna Miller, good evening, all. Hi, Deanna. Paul Faye Marie Raucci, greetings from Floral City. Paula Faye Marie Raucci is my favorite four-named lady. Tencel Sizemore, dinner time, turkey hash, pumpkin casserole, onion roll with pesto. That is some crazy mixture. Your bowels are going to say, enough already. What is it with Tencel and the way he eats, Wyatt?
I have no idea who you were talking about or what you were talking
Tencel
about. I'm too
Sizemore.
busy congratulating all new French audience, because Danny Herring is saying bonjour.
Ah, bonjour. Dusty Wilhelm. Hello, friends, and so begins another episode of Sirloin and Loin Boy. See that? I'm Sirloin and Loin Boy.
Yes,
and where's St. Nick?
I see that thing that you have birthed into reality, and I hate it.
Wyatt, you are that thing that I birthed into reality. And you love it.
Know what I mean.
Ched's here, and he's going like this. Aaron Oakes, woohoo! Karen Tudor is watching. She showed up, Wyatt.
Finally.
You know how she used to hang out with Nick Kress and just watch?
In a bygone era. I can't remember the last time. I forget who Nick Kress even is. Does he frequent the stream often?
Nah, he jumped in right in the beginning, but he was a fair weather fan. He just bailed immediately. Greg Smith, hi, Wyatt. Hi, Wyatt. And hello to that other guy, Brian. Brent. No, wait, Brad. Yeah, Brad. So who the heck is Greg, and why does he like you so much?
Well, because he can apparently see where the talent is sitting.
Wyatt, Karen Boyd said, welcome back. She finally showed up. Aaron Oaks, I'm first. Tencel Sizemore working on homemade Christmas cards to mail. Yeah, he's sending them to us, White. Let's see. Where is St. Nick, says Karen Boyd. Now, yeah, something's wrong. Danny Herring, bonjour, Bread and White. Happy to be here. Hey, Danny. Hi, honey. Listen, saddle up. Get yourself some reindeer. Get on a parka. Get your AR. Get the heck out of Canada. We're at the border. Sean Shiriak, let's see. Hey, Bread and White, I won free Italian bees today through Sweet Mountain Honeybees Supplies in a raffle. So free Italian bees. So he's got...
So how many mountains do you have to lick to know which ones are sweets?
I'm surprised that they're giving bees as prizes. I got to be honest with you.
In a raffle, nonetheless. Like, you'd have to enter that. You have to know... If I win this, I'm getting bees. Sign me up.
I'm not anti-bee. I'm just saying I've never heard of being as a reward, Wyatt.
It's like, hey, pay $5, enter this raffle, and if you win, I'll punch you in the face. And then some people are like, well, I know what I'm doing this weekend.
Wyatt, you know how important bees are?
I mean, they're not the most important, but I'll just tell you this much. They're no A, but...
What? Why?
Yeah.
Bees are incredibly important to the environment. They are the ones that pollinate our flowers. They continue to...
yeah, again, and if they're so good, why aren't they A's?
Well, I think part of what makes them so special is not only that they give and they give and they give, but that they're not trying to seek fame and fortune. They're content with bees, right?
Well, okay, but like... Why would you be content with barely passing? That's what B stands for. Barely did good enough. You should go for an A always.
No, because D means didn't do good enough.
And C means...
Could have done better.
Yeah, could have done better. F means...
Failure.
No, that's too obvious. Obviously, it'd be failure.
Fundamentally flawed.
I like it. Let's go with that one.
Right.
And then A's mean...
Absolutely nailed it.
Actually good.
Okay.
And then, I guess that's as far as the show goes.
Well,
all right, chat. Let's pay our respects to the A joke. It lasted a whole 2 minutes. It will be surely missed.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think everybody's kind of saying, let's move on, probably from the time you started it. The moment you launched it, they go,
come on.
Well, it's going
not the worst joke this show has produced.
Wyatt, the worst joke this show has produced, we did a long time ago. But one of the best things we produced is my latest movie that came out Thanksgiving, actually the day before Thanksgiving. And you guys watched the evolution of that because people would comment about my amazing mustache and beard and whatnot. And they said, what's that all about? And I said, guys, it's for a movie. And then when I went to on the set and I filmed myself preparing to do scenes, didn't we show that? No, I showed it on Facebook. Did we ever show it on a podcast?
We did.
Yeah. And so, anyways, I wanted to show the folks that you can get it now on Rumble. You can watch it. Jingle Smells, it's called. It's been all over Instagram now and Rumble. But, hey, I think we even have another trailer of me doing some of my stuff. So, Wyatt, if you would, son, let them see my trailer.
All right. Here it is.
Hey, Nicky!
Uncle Michael says you've been killing it on the job. He's not my uncle.
So proud of my little man. And he is my little man. Nick, I got you this.
Wow. Did you get this from the trash?
It's like my sanitation senses are tingling.
I got you something.
Is that because I got you a hat? I guess that makes us little magic friends.
Why do you always make it so weird?
Ta-da! I'm in a movie, Wyatt. I'm in a movie. Hey, listen, it's not a bad movie. I want to see, though, I saw some other folks jumped on.
Great opener. It's not bad. You know what? They should make that the tagline.
Hey, look at this. Ha, ha, ha. Nick and Kari. Ooh, Karen Boyd took them down to Chinatown. Sean Syriac for making funny. Tencel Sizemore, I am a she. What? Why, I told you last time we talked about Tencel that she's a she, and you said, no, it's a guy. Now, I told you that, and I went with you to help you save face, but see what you did to me, son?
Yeah.
So enough with the Tencel.
I'm pretty sure that ain't how it worked.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I am too distracted by making the stream not explode to argue.
Oh, my gosh, look who showed up.
Is it Nick Kress?
No.
Oh, well, of course. Why would it be Nick Kress? It's not like he's here, ever.
You ready for this?
No.
Ashley Haas.
Oh, wow.
Because here's what she said, and of course, who's she going to acquiesce to? Who doesn't like Wyatt?
That is a great question. Audience, answer. Who doesn't love the talent?
You know what Bobby Hildberg said? Hello from Boston. Well done. I'm just teasing Karen Boyd. Michael Quackenbush is here. Good evening, all. Hayden Smoot, beekeepers are pretty cool. Aaron Oaks, bees get degrees. There you go. Nicholas M. Blank, hello from Florida. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. Hi, Brad and White. Hello. Brain DeButcher, good evening. World's best comic. I'm sorry, White. What did he say again? World's best comic. I don't know. Maybe I misread that because of I got the new glasses. Brain DeButcher. Good evening, world's best comic. I remember you mentioned about talent.
I don't see the comment anywhere on the feed, so I'm not sure making it up or I'm blind. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
You know what Karen Boyd just said to Ashley? I don't know. Did you get your autograph yet?
I'm working on it.
Oh, my God.
Okay, honestly, I was going to do it today. And then I thought, well, I could just assign like a blank sheet of paper, but like, come on, anyone can do that. There's got to be something better I could do, but what? And then that ate up about my entire afternoon thinking about. And so, yeah. So yeah, what do you think I should? Look, you try being famous. It ain't easy.
You know what Ashley just said?
What?
No autograph yet. 'Tis my cross to bear. Laugh out loud. The price of Wyatt being popular. Can't be easy for him to make the world go round.
Okay, but that's not entirely false. I actually have reached a level of popularity that I never thought in my life I would ever obtain. Not once, but twice. I have had somebody see me just out in public, stop me, and say, hey, I love your work. And you want to know what the funny part is?
What?
In both instances, the thing they recognized me from wasn't my voice.
Right.
It was actually my looks. Because they recognized me from working at Lowe's. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. I have become more famous working at Lowe's than in 3 years of this podcast. And I'm not going to lie, I don't know what that means. I really don't know what that means.
Well, you are a nice guy. You probably are very good taking care of the people. You found that syringe one time. You didn't turn anybody in. You didn't call the cops. And then it vanished, oddly enough, and never showed up.
I'm not really sure what happened to it, honestly.
Crazy.
But like, what do you say to that? Like, is this it? Have I peaked? Is this as high as I'm going to go? Is there anything left for me? Any hills left to climb? Any peaks left to conquer? Am I just going to be known for the rest of eternity as the Lowe's guy?
I think that once you chose to work at Lowe's and let people know it and admit it in public, I think you sealed your fate. Deal with it.
Oh, no. This was like 2 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
So they're not recognizing you anymore. Do you have any new people? How's things going? Are they hiring a bunch of folks now because
they
it's
are hiring
Christmas?
a bunch of people, and if I'm lucky, I'll see them maybe once.
Okay.
And then they leave.
So they don't have a time to get their own Lowe's lore like you have.
Well, funny you should mention that. Because one of the rare instances where I did get to see a new hire was yesterday.
Okay.
And he actually, and I quote, had his first Lowe's story.
Really? He's part of the Lowe's lore? Tell me.
Well, yeah.
Do
because
tell.
You see, I every new hire, I tell my favorite Lowe's stories too.
Okay.
And eventually, I guess the term Lowe's story caught on.
Okay.
Because now these new hires are using it whenever something weird happens.
Okay.
So this guy in particular, he's helping a customer get a tool, and this tool is an oscillating tool. So it's got that like thin square blade that sort of vibrates.
Yeah.
Like you use it for like cutting drywall.
Oh, yeah.
Or if you get the right blade, wood or metal.
Okay.
So the guy spends like, I think 5-10 minutes trying to help this guy because he needs to get it out of the cage we have everything in because people keep stealing stuff.
Yeah.
And we were just talking, just there's nothing else to do. It's a pretty slow day. And the customer approaches him with the tool in hand. And again, this is a tool that you use to cut things up to and including like I-beams. And goes, so is this going to be good for cleaning my car? May I just point out that if he didn't stop them and say no, that customer's car would have been, cleaned. If by cleaned you mean cut in half.
Why, this guy bought an oscillating saw thinking it was a vacuum for his car?
No, of course not. He's not an idiot. He thought it was one of those pads that you can attach to a drill that sort of buffs it out.
Listen.
How do you even, how do you look at something?
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I wonder about tools. I wonder about the different things you guys sell because you have a lot of stuff. And granted, people come up with new stuff all the time. I mean, every time you think, hey, they probably hit the limit of tools. Something comes up and you go, what is this? And then you go, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah. I mean, has anything ever what was the most clever thing you saw when you started working at Lowe's that you said, that is really cool.
That is easy. That is so easy. That is so easy. It was about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
During Christmas time. We are doing our inventory. We got a box of stuff to put away.
Yeah.
I open the box, and the first thing that I see is a brand new utility knife from Tough Built.
Okay.
I bought it the second I laid eyes on it because you see, what made this unique was that this particular utility knife was magazine fed.
Why? I think you showed that on one of our podcasts.
I did show it. It's that very that right there is my favorite. I literally, and I kid you not, audience, I own 5 of those now.
What?
I can't help it. I love them.
Why? That's weird.
I bought blades for them, different kinds of blades for different purposes. I have them in a drawer, and I use them still to this day.
My Lord, why?
It's so sad. Look. You've never used one. You've hardly even seen one. Who are you to judge me?
No, I thought it was very cool, and you showed it to everybody. You showed it off to everybody.
I will show it to literally any person.
But here's
who wants
something
it.
that I wanted to. So I spent time with family and whatever. We went down. We went up to Indiana where we go for Thanksgiving to your aunt's house, my sister's, and. But prior to that, about a day or two before we left, I was talking with your uncles, my brothers. I have 2 brothers. Neither of them are as attractive as me. Neither of us are talented as me. I'm shocked they still are alive, frankly, because they're fairly inept. But here they are. So I try to pump them up and give them some hope, wipe their tears away, say maybe someday, just keep working at it, Maybe Lowe's job will open up. I don't want to get their hopes up, but I'm just saying. And we got talking about something that I discovered about both of them that was interesting. Started with my youngest brother, his name's Shay. He bought himself a bidet. And he told my other brother, Sean, that you got to get a bidet. And he did. And now they both swear by bidets. Wyatt, I am an older man. I've been around. I'm not super old, but I'm old enough to have been around the block a few times. And, I was thinking about this. When you think about human history and the things that have evolved, let's take things you got to have. Food. You got to have food.
Yeah.
And so they, years ago, learned how to capture meat, I guess. Maybe they
That
start...
is one way to describe livestock.
Well, listen, there's children watching this, White, and I want to save them that
Yes,
trauma.
there
I
were
want to save them
children-
that
yeah,
trauma.
Yes, there were children watching the escapades of Loin Boy and Sir Loin.
Don't think that couldn't be a cartoon.
I'm not saying it couldn't be. That's what concerns me.
But or a T-shirt. Hey, what if we got like the people that made Rick and Morty cartoons, and they made us?
I would first off be confused if they even know who we are.
Yeah.
Second of all, I'd buy it.
Yes. Well, that's it. But here's what I was getting at. So that you kill the thing, I guess you eat it raw at first, and then they discover fire.
You guess they ate it raw at first?
Yeah.
What else would they do? Stare at it? Just, oh, look, we killed the thing. Yep, it's certainly dead.
Well,
Time passes. Well, would you look at that dead thing that's still dead? Mm-hmm. And then, like, what, 1,000 years later, someone's like, hey, guys, I got an idea. What if we eat it? Like, really? That is your history of human...
no, they saw a tiger get the gazelle, tear it apart, eat it, and go, aha, good idea. So they realized this was a walking refrigerator, because they were doing nuts and berries and pears, and
Pears?
I'm sure they had pears eventually.
Well, okay, yeah, but, like, where exactly do you think these hypothetical early humans were?
In a jungle or some place that made pears.
Do pears live in jungles?
I would hope so. If they were dead, they couldn't eat them.
Actually, no. Where do most fruit come from? Like
trees.
Originally. Well, I know from trees, but where are the trees?
Next to the bees?
What about the A's?
We don't know. Here's what I do know. They started cooking them, right? Stuck on a stick, put in there. I don't know why they... And by the way, I don't know why they started cooking it. I mean, really, why would they start cooking it? If you could eat it raw and it worked, why cook it? Either way, that's not what I'm getting at. They cook it, they eat it, and then over time they go, well, we could have a contained fire, and they have a hearth, right, and put it in their house, and then they have it, and they cook it over spit, and then they have barbecue, and then they say, hey, and they come up with a stove, and then they have a stove, and then they have a microwave, and then they have all these things. Okay, so we have to eat, and yet look at the evolution of cooking, right, utensils. And so then it's like clothing, and they rip the fur off of something, and they put it on, and then they learn how to make cotton, and they gin it up, and they put buttons on. So I'm talking about the growth. So everything evolves, right? This is stuff that we have to. You got to wear clothing and look at the transformation and the man-made materials that we've used, right, to make materials that can be used as clothing. The food we've already talked about, shoes, shoe wear, and how that's changed and evolved. But it's always growing, getting more complicated, getting more sophisticated, right? And then we have toilet paper.
Okay, this seems like an odd segue. Toilet paper. What?
Stay with me.
I mean.
So what I'm getting at is this: toilet paper is simply a convenient roll of leaves and/or brush, grasses, whatever, finger. I'm not trying to get gross on you, but whatever people utilize to cleanse themselves after ridding themselves of their unused food, they use this. We grew up with people talking about going in the outhouse and tearing a magazine and using a magazine.
Well, I mean, you know why they called it an outhouse, right?
Why?
They hadn't invented indoor plumbing yet.
Okay. In-house is what they eventually called it, and then that became a bathroom.
Exactly. Because just like in-house, washroom means just as much about what you actually do in there as in-house does.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope.
Seriously,
But my point that I'm trying to make is this.
Point, yes.
I didn't understand why they hadn't come up with something more substantial and sophisticated and cleanliness, and can we not do with the hands is what I was getting at.
Well, okay, but
well, I guess that's a bidet. But here's what I found out. You know what a bidet does, right?
I thought it was the tiny hat, but I just realized that's a beret.
No, that's a beret. No, a bidet.
I mean, you could use it for the same purpose, I guess.
Why,
like, no one's going to stop you.
If you're utilizing the restroom facilities and when finished, you cleanse yourself with a beret, no wonder Ashley isn't talking to you.
You know what? Maybe a restaurant for dyslexics. How do you know?
Well, I don't. I don't know. But here's what I do know. A bidet, apparently, I've never used one, sprays water all over your bum.
That's supposed to do something?
Well, it cleanses you of, this, again, it's hard to have this conversation without being gross, and I'm not trying to be gross.
Well, it's hard to have the conversation without being gross. It's awkward to try.
Well, but I'm shooting for it, and I'm doing everything I can.
And you know what? You are definitely trying.
But I'm doing a crappy job.
Okay, be honest with me. This whole bit was just an excuse to use that pun.
It wasn't. I had to get out of it somehow.
You can't prove otherwise.
I can't, but here's what I did want to get at.
Okay.
It sprays you clean. So suddenly you are clean, but you're wet. So guess what? You still have to take toilet paper and pat yourself down.
I mean, isn't your bum being wet like the last thing you want happening when you're on the toilet?
Yes!
Because usually that means that there was some backsplash.
Right!
It's even if you know that's not the case, the mental image has to be there still.
Now, I'm sure our people out there are going, why are you guys talking about this? Because we are grossed out. And one guy was having Thanksgiving dinner. But I was trying to make a point about how we evolved technology, because we were coming out of Lowe's and the technology, and you had your magazine-driven 5, by the way, box cutters, because you love it so much.
It's so cool.
And so I said to myself, of all the most basic of human needs, it's, eliminating your food. And they did come up with this thing, but it's simply squirting water all over you, and you still have to use your hands. Why can't they come up with a handless way to cleanse oneself in this very demeaning element of the human experience that everybody has to experience? Because if we don't, we don't eat. If we don't eat, we die. So here we sit. We're stuck with the indignity just so we can survive. Wyatt, why hasn't Lowe's figured this out?
Well, that's a good question. Part of me wants to think that the biggest reason why we haven't evolved past toilet paper and bidets is simply the fact that we don't trust any outside source enough.
Okay.
It's the whole thing with autopilot and Teslas. I'm still pretty sure most people aren't entirely ready to just no longer have control over that,
Yeah.
Because there's a sense of security in knowing you are responsible for what happens. I feel like to a lesser but nonetheless important thing, I forget the word, to a lesser extent. That's
well put, Wyatt.
To a lesser but no...
You using a dictionary at this point?
The source, actually. How could you tell?
Lord.
To a lesser extent, but not a less important one, this is the same thing. Nobody wants anything other than themselves anywhere near the bum.
Wyatt, I don't know if you know this. Do you know the new Teslas have bidets?
I cannot tell if you're kidding or not, because that is exactly the kind of thing that they would do.
But they're electronically driven by battery.
As opposed to being electronically powered by, Flintstones technology, just floating on the ground?
Rubber bands.
Okay. So,
Anyways, have you ever used a bidet?
I didn't. I thought it was a hat. What do you think?
That's true. Have you ever used a bidet? No?
No, I haven't. I've heard that Japan has these really high-tech toilets that squirt water on your bum.
Yeah.
And I think they do. I think it's
That's a
basically
bidet. By the way, I just glanced down, and guess who's here?
Nick Chris.
Yeah. So what happened to Nick?
He's a bit late. He missed the beret talk.
Oh my gosh, a bum shot. Welcome, Nick. Why didn't you just open the doors? Isn't it cold up there? What happened? Where was he, folks? Oh my goodness. I'm going backwards. Anyways, I don't see where he showed up. Hey, Kobe Cook Cobb. This is a full question. I don't know of a Kobe Cook Cobb, so this is a new guy. Jimmy Bledsoe. Oh, and you two are hilarious, Brad. A hat. Listen, Jimmy, I didn't say it was a hat. My son thought a bidet was a small hat.
To be fair, beret and bidet are incredibly similar.
Hey, my son has a Tesla. He does let car run on its own. He's a Honda mechanic.
Well, there you have it, folks. You heard it here first. Whatever it is.
Well, all I'm saying is, and I think Nicholas M. Blake sums that best, we can send people to the moon, but we can't figure out a way to wipe our butts with no hands. That's all I was getting at.
Yeah, so that was the moral of the story, right?
The moral of the story is, I just felt like, how have we not, as human beings, with a fairly sophisticated human condition in 2023, haven't figured out ways to cleanse ourselves without hands. That's all I was trying to get to. I just didn't understand. And then their solution was spraying water, taking a hose to you.
You know, if you think about it, let's talk about clocks. We started out with staring at the sun, and then we eventually decided stare at a rock that's just angled so that you can use the shadows, a sundial. And then, watches started to become a thing. And now we're in the age of digital clocks. But for some reason, despite all of our hundreds of years of advancements in this field, we still cannot invent a clock that recognizes daylight savings time and adjusts accordingly. And yes, I am talking about the clock that we use to make sure that we're not going over. I did pay $10 for it, but I still expect more than this.
Listen, my son, I said, because I counted on him being my producer, guys. I said, can you get me a little clock to set down here so I know where we're at time-wise so that, we can keep things going. Especially when I'm interviewing people, I need to know where we're at, because if they say, hey, I can only do an hour, then I try to be respectful of that time. So he gets me this cheap junk clock.
It was the best Target had to offer.
He can't even figure out how to change it. So it's still in last week's time. It's 8:30 instead of 7:30.
I know how to fix it.
And it's like 3 minutes ahead. And I said, why? It bugs me. I want it the same time as yours. And he fix it.
I try, but every time it takes me so long. By the time I'm finished, it's daylight savings again.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, listen, folks. I got to ask you a question. Did you have a nice Thanksgiving? Did you give thanks? Did you take time? Or was it more of a ritual like, we said, now many people, I don't know, if you're not religious folks, then you don't pray. We always, of course, pray, and we are thankful, because that's what the original Thanksgiving was. Thankfulness. We're still here. We survived. Now, these are people that most of them died. Most of the wives, the husbands, the children died. And they were thankful. And I think that's an interesting gratefulness. Is such an
They were thankful for dying?
that they were still there, that they survived.
You just said they all died, and they were thankful.
They were thankful that they were still there, even though they lost so many of their people.
Okay, I'm just saying, you may have wanted to word that a little bit better.
So
because you know that I'm the guy in charge of finding clips for the after show thing, right?
Yes.
And don't mind me. I'm just gonna write down a certain timestamp. Keep talking though, please.
Oh, by the way, you did. By the way, our guest this evening did have a special answer.
Yes, and it's comedy in the special interest folder.
Okay, just want to make sure. So, folks, you're going to love our guest tonight. It's a very interesting person who had a very interesting career and was involved with a very interesting, very famous person. So you guys are going to enjoy that. But speaking of famous people, White, I got to tell you something. A couple weeks ago.
Hold on. Before you get into the story, Nicholas M. Blake, sorry. Nick Ress wants to know if the iPad has a clock on it. To which the answer is yes.
No.
Yes, it does.
Where?
Look in the,
No.
yeah, look at the tops of the screen.
No, you got me a crappy one.
No, look at the top of the screen. Every iPod has a clock on it. It comes with the iPod.
Oh, yeah, once I make my screen go away.
Oh, boo-hoo. You have to press a button to see what time it is.
Hey, Nicholas Blake had a great Thanksgiving with his wife and his roommate.
And, you know,
Okay.
saying doesn't make it less of a dead space.
A couple weeks ago,
Uh-huh.
I did something I'd never done before.
Be funny?
I threw you a curveball.
Oh, right. This, yep.
I was minding my own business because I had just performed in Illinois, and I'm heading back to Illinois in January, to Moline, so way up in the left corner next to Iowa. And I met a young lady, and she just seemed sweet and nice and bubbly and a little shy, but very nice, right? And she asked for your autograph. Do you remember that?
I'm working on it.
So I came back and I decided to say this young lady is very interested in your autograph and everything. And I kind of, said, I'm just tired of you sitting around the house. You need to get yourself out. You need to experience life. You need to do the, relationship thing, which your generation is losing. They grew up with fake friends, right? It's all on the internet. It's all digital. You don't know what it is to actually have to engage people, to find a human being and get to know them and see if you want to be friends or whatever. So it's a lost art for your people. And if somebody doesn't apparently walk you people through the scenario of trying to just connect to somebody, the world's going to end because the human race is going to basically vanish because you guys are just relying on digital humans that aren't real. And so I felt bad because, I didn't really know this young lady. I was just being nice. She just seemed nice. And I thought, she's kind of quirky and odd. And she is. And I like odd people. They're my favorite people. So I thought, well, my son's quirky and odd. Maybe they should talk to each other. And she's the one that asked first. Remember, she asked for your autograph. So here we sit, and then I thought, I feel bad because these are grown adults. I mean, I don't need to connect them, and it's weird, and they're kind of awkward. And she's watches the podcast, so she's a fan of the podcast. So it's like, man, I put these guys in a weird. So I wanted to publicly apologize to you and Ashley for putting you in that weird situation, and I didn't want anybody to feel odd or feel like I was, doing something that was exploiting your autonomy and whatever. So I don't even, have you even stayed in touch?
Oh yeah. We talk often. Usually once or twice a day. Just, small conversations. Why are you looking at that?
What?
Why are you looking at that?
Wait, you're talking to each other?
Well, I mean, it's texting, so I guess it's not really talking, but it's...
What are you talking about? I've been there.
Can I phone a friend?
Right. Is it private stuff?
No, it's I literally forgot. Hold on, let me put it up. Let me see if I can just.
Now, folks, I want to tell you something about my son Wyatt. He's kind of like an idiot savant. He's very, very gifted in some things, but he literally has no short-term or long-term memory. He doesn't remember any class he was in school, doesn't remember any teacher. He barely remembers people's names that he's known for a year. I'm not kidding, by the way. And so he said, oh, yeah, I remembered that I've had a couple conversations today with Ashley, but I don't remember what we talked about.
Okay. We recently had a conversation about Christmas trees and, traditions and setting it up.
Oh, and did you say that your mom thinks they're heathen and pagan and need to be discarded?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Never mind.
No, hold on.
I don't
This is new information for me, and I would love to hear it so I can make sure I am not actually going insane.
Well, you know how your mom suddenly decided that because there was some pagan elements of the Christmas tree that maybe we shouldn't do a Christmas tree.
No.
Yeah.
In fact,
And
when was this?
Yeah,
I
no,
was
it's
not
this year.
involved.
This year.
What do you mean this
Yes, this is the year she
year? I
decided.
just yesterday saw her getting out the alligator in a Santa Claus suit nutcracker. You mean to tell me we ain't doing this no more?
No, we're doing it. We're doing it. Because here's what I told her. I said, listen, I don't care if it was pagan. I don't care. To me, the part about Jesus that's so amazing is he heals everything. He redeems everything. So even if though we know that Jesus wasn't born on December 25th, and even though maybe there was some pagan holiday for December 25th, when I look at a Christmas tree, I'm not worshiping that Christmas tree. I'm not working some pagan ornaments or whatever. To me, it's about life. It's about the creation of the tree, which was by God. So the pagans kind of stole it in the first place. They have no right to that tree. God created that tree, and God can redeem it. And if he decides December 25th is his birthday or wants to be represented as such, he can do what he wants because there are no birthdays in his world. There's no days in his world. Matter of fact, if you're going to get that technical, you shouldn't even use the word Monday or Tuesday because they all come from, I think, Greek and or Roman gods, including the months. So you shouldn't even use terminology if you're going to be so silly. But God redeemed it all. That's why I say I see that and it makes me feel like it's Christmas and that it's the greatest story. That God becomes a human. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. Or it's the greatest story of all time, which I agree with and believe in. So Wyatt, we're having the tree thanks to your old man. Yes, it was up to me to make it happen. Yes, it was up to me to circumvent your mother's foray into some new perspective that perhaps we've been missing all along. Yes, it's up to me. 31 years of marriage. I've learned how to negotiate it. You and Ashley are just starting to talk. You can't remember what she said last week. You're in trouble, son.
Actually, no. The conversation I was talking about happened yesterday.
Okay, well, that's a whole different thing then.
Yeah, now it's acceptable.
Yeah, that now makes all the sense.
That is within the realm of acceptability. Okay,
well,
good.
listen, if you guys continue to talk to each other, who knows? Maybe one day you guys can FaceTime.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
That might be fun.
Yeah.
Has she ever seen you yet?
No, not yet.
So she doesn't know what you look like?
No.
Have you given her a clue?
No.
I told you what the clue was.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a clue, matter of fact, that only one person figured it out on their own.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you're saying that's going to make that change.
No?
Really?
No one will know what happened, but it was our
There
our
were
buddy.
people there when it happened.
No. This person indicated something that made you go, holy smoke.
Oh, I remember this conversation. Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Her name is Karen Boyd. Karen is she's like a Sherlock Holmes. But she made a reference point that I said, okay, how did she figured, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. So, good for you, Karen. You are quite the young lady. Speaking of young ladies, I want you guys to know that for next year, as we move into next year, 2024, it's going to be quite a difficult, special year. Hopefully, it will have great things that occur, but it certainly has the potential to way go south because it's a presidential election. And during that time period, we're going to be trying to figure out as Americans just how much of the lunacy is going to be continued until there really is nowhere left to go in America where rationale and logic and reason and tradition remain secure. if we don't remove ourselves from the folks who are in charge, and I'm talking about lunatics who want to destroy this nation, we won't survive, and it's for real. I will not be here. They will get rid of people like me. So you can fix that, or at least give yourself a chance for us to stay together by going to bradstine.com and joining the Mighty 10,000. The Mighty 10,000. I said I want to see if I can find 10,000 people who identify as Americans, who love this nation, want to fight for its traditions and its heritage, and will donate $3 a month, so it's $36 a year. And with that, we will have, and we're building it right now, a paywall where you will still get to watch the podcast and everything else, but you'll also have options to have other things, discounts on certain things, and also have special guests, special opportunities, special relationships that you can watch, or conversations I have that are behind the paywall that you and you only get to watch, including some of the guests that I'm having on who will answer questions that only you will get to see if you are part of the Mighty 10,000. And that will mean you have joined the militia of the mind. You are going to outthink, outpray, outfight, outwin these people, or at least you're going to die trying. So if you are new and you care about freedom and you want to watch this grow, I've got some exciting things that I think are about to happen. I'm really prayerful it will. But I wanted to add more content to this podcast. It's grown exponentially, but I think there could possibly be even more interesting special things that we will have on this podcast, including going out into the social world to build this thing up into something bigger and bigger and bigger until we'll have 10,000 people watch. And it'll be hard to notice where Karen and Nick are. But we'll look for them because we're having fun. We're a family. We're becoming the Mighty 10,000 because the militia of the mind are real people who really care about this nation. But I just thought that maybe, just maybe, we can find something interesting that comes out of this little song and dance that you and Ashley have been playing, and see if maybe, who knows what could happen. But maybe, just maybe, you might end up being friends. Who knows? But you got to try. And people your age need to get up and learn how to engage real human beings in real time, son. Does that frighten you, or do you feel like I'm onto something?
I'm sorry, I forgot what you said.
Yeah, I got confused. Never mind. But here is what is important. Our next guest. Now, I told you guys that we're going to continue to have some great guests, and I got some really wonderful guests lined up here in the next couple of weeks, all of December, really, that I'm going to be pre-recording. That's how I have to do it, so that it doesn't get all fuzzy and drag when we watch it. We tried it a couple times to do a Zoom interview live, and it would drag on through all the gear and equipment, and the get out of sync. And so we had to, that's the only reason we pre-record. I'd rather do it live. I think it'd be more fun and interesting, but it doesn't make a better product for you guys. So I've got some really interesting people coming up. I'll even give you a clue, since you are my people and you are watching. Tomorrow I'll be interviewing Kirk Cameron, and he will be one of our guests upcoming, as well as some other folks that are very interesting and very, well, they're just like last week when we had Ivan Babov, I can't say his name, it's Russian. But he was a portrait artist, an amazing guy who did that right there by hand in 1 hour with a pencil. So I like artists. I don't just have artists on, but I like them. And I think that a lot of you guys who watch this are like art. You like comedy, obviously. But I like to bring on different types of art on different genres. And this particular, one of the ones I probably had the most of is musicians, usually singers. Well, this particular guest tonight is a musician, or he was. He also teaches and has got his own podcast that will be come out soon. But it was a wonderful, amazing conversation. And what is really interesting about this particular man is he started, I think, you'll see it in the podcast, I think in 79 or 80, he was the original lead guitar player for Prince. Do you know how good you have to play guitar that when you and Prince get together, he says, you take the lead. Well, he did. He was in The Revolution, I think they were called. I don't remember what it all be in there. But he was the original lead guitar player for Prince, and they toured together. And they have some stories, some interesting stories. And so if you are a fan of Prince, the late Prince, you get to hear some stories about him. There's one, I did ask him for one crazy story, and that's the one that got saved for the paywall. So you're not going to get to see that unless you are part of the Mighty 10. Then you'll get to do it as soon as we get this thing set up. Hopefully this before the year's end, you guys will have access to all this extra stuff. But we're trying, man. I'm just doing it a piece at a time. But this guy was beyond just Prince. He talks about music and art and faith. He's a man of faith. He's a Christian, and that actually might have caused some of the rift with Prince, who was not. But I promise you, this is such a fascinating interview. You're really going to enjoy it. And again, if you guys want to continue to talk, Wyatt and I try to watch, we try to observe, we try to jump in if we can now and again. Or if you have some people you would like me to bring on as a guest, I can't promise you I can get them. I'm not huge enough that I can just choose who I want, but we can try. Certainly in the Christian world, I do want to bring on a lot more people that are not believers, that are either like-minded or are not like us, but we can try to find something in common. I think for a really important podcast, you should be able to bring people on that you disagree with. It makes for a more interesting broadcast, I think, and dialogue. But Wyatt, I think it's time to really let these people see this interview. You were there in the midst as we were filming it, and it was good. I hope to even have him on again because he was that good. And I don't do that often. But folks, like I said, we got some great stuff coming. Please join. Please share this as much as you can. Please subscribe on YouTube and follow me here on Facebook and sign up on Spotify, and let's just grow and see what God may have for us with Stine Has Issues. So for right now, sit back, relax, and if you're a musician, enjoy this very interesting interview with Dez Dickerson, the original guitar player for Prince. You're welcome.
One.
Folks, when I started as a comic, I didn't know I was going to have a podcast because why would I? There's only 850 trillion out there. Who would care about mine? But nevertheless, here I am doing my little thing. And what in the world did I find myself but in a position to have very interesting, eclectic guests on my show, people that I would probably have never met had I not had this, and some very amazing, very successful people, all much smarter and much more successful than me, which, by the way, isn't hard. But by the same token, I love it. I love all people. I love the people that are deep and dark and crazy. I don't even want everybody that agrees with me on the show because actually conversations are more interesting when people disagree if they can do it civilly, which is impossible in America right now, but nevertheless, here we sit. But not today. Today is a very special guest. I'm very excited to talk to this gentleman because he's an artist, a musician, and one who has been very, very successful in his chosen profession. And you are about to find out why and who and what he has done. And it's going to be pretty interesting, and I'm really excited about that. But more importantly, to find out who he is as a man, philosophically, what is his worldview, how does he navigate the earth, what matters, what's important, why are we here? You know, the simple things that musicians and comedians like to talk about because apparently we're the last truth tellers on earth. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and I'm very excited to bring on a musician, producer, writer, bon vivant, Renaissance man who is really going to intrigue you with a story, I promise. Please welcome Dez Dickerson to Stine Has Issues, brother.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure to meet
good
you,
to be here.
my friend.
Good to meet you as well. Over the years, you know, we've known, it's just a small town. We've known people who know each other.
Really?
But this is the first time we've sat down. Now we're going to challenge my my seasoned brain.
You made a premise, and I'm going to.
Was a guy named Mike Smith ever involved with your career?
Of course, he was my manager.
Well, there you go. And I know Mike well. We
Great
used to, in my record business days.
Yeah, of course. Well, he was on Music Row
There we go.
when he first moved down to town from Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is that where you are?
Well, no. I worked initially at a label called Star Song when I first came to town, which was bought by EMI, merged with what was then Sparrow, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But we were in Green Hills. I started a label, moved it to Cool Springs. And I keep moving south. We just moved about a year ago to Columbia.
Oh, nice.
I may be in Alabama by this time.
Yeah,
next year.
no
I don't know,
kidding.
but
Yeah,
you know,
right.
that's kind of the way that goes.
All right. Well, if the Californians keep moving,
That's why we moved.
Us all to
That's
Alabama.
why we moved to Columbia.
Exactly.
I love California. I just never wanted to live there, but suddenly I found that I was. So.
Well, well, how long have you lived in Nashville then?
33 years.
Wow. So you got here way before the
Oh, yeah.
Exodus.
Oh,
For the Blue Exodus.
Oh, way before.
Yeah, I've been here 22 years. So
Yeah.
same thing. I was from Southern California. Well, I lived there. I'm from Indiana, but I lived most of my life in Orange County.
Yeah.
And
Loved Orange
love California. I've been in all 50 states. I've said this publicly. If somebody was to ask me what is the best state pound for what it offers, if you had to choose, on basic geography and eclectic access to artistic and aesthetic elements, nothing can touch California.
Absolutely.
It's the greatest state and has completely gone off the rails.
It's run
They
by
have destroyed-
psychotic zombies and
Yes, they destroy. How do you screw up a masterpiece? How do you do it?
they found out.
Well-
They figured it out.
Well, but it's sad to me. It just made me think of that. This is way off topic.
We had a topic.
Well, exactly. No, but it made me think about that framework because I remember when I would talk to people about sexual relationships outside of marriage. I'm a Christ follower, so I believe that you're supposed to be in a holy
Amen.
matrimony. But I said, it's easy, it's fun to have sex with anybody you want. I said, but it's kind of like making a sled out of a Rembrandt. It's fun, but you're destroying a masterpiece.
Absolutely.
I just brought that up because I don't often use masterpiece in my idioms and nomenclature, but masterpiece I think is an interesting starting point because it was a terminology that was reserved usually for the artist. It was something that was considered the epitome of your work. If you're an artist who has made a living at it, you're a professional. There will be your ultimate. In your case, you're a musician. The ultimate record, the ultimate song, maybe the ultimate album. However you want. I'm old school, so I still call them albums. I'll never
I
call it
just
anything.
preached this gospel to some college students a couple of weeks ago. An album is a collection of things. A collection of songs is still an album.
Yes, but I
It's
love
not
the
a format.
term.
Yes.
Well, think about it. CD.
Yeah.
What? DVD. I mean, I don't even know. Download. It's just all hard. But album sounds. I can smell it. I can feel it. It's organic, which is why. And by the way, you guys need to know this. Let's just jump before we go into these deeper issues. We need to establish who you are because it's interesting. So you started out in the music business as a guitarist.
As a guitar player.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, you stumbled upon some somewhat successful musician. I think he dabbled in guitar, if I'm not mistaken.
He tried. He did
Yeah,
his
but he
best.
was somebody that it was the original band. What was his name?
His name was Duke. Prince. Prince.
Ah,
Prince. That's what it was.
Prince.
Yeah.
So you were the original guitarist
Yes.
in Prince's band.
Yes,
Were
I
you
was.
the lead?
I was the
guitar-
lead guitar player. Yeah.
If Prince hires you to be the lead, you got some chops.
The thing is, he was the best rhythm player ever in the history of the instrument. But he also acknowledged, hey, you know what? You're a better lead player than I am. At
Yeah.
that time, here's his
Wow.
thing. His whole thing was he would absorb everything around him until he became better than everything around him. Now, if he was here, and because we've had this conversation, if he was here, he would admit that I was better as a lead player at that time than he was. Yeah.
At that time, okay.
Yeah.
How old is he when you first met?
I think 19, maybe just turned
He was
20.
a young guy, but he was a prodigy, apparently.
Oh, yeah, he was, no doubt.
Now, did he only play guitar, or did he?
He played, his tally was 16 different instruments.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, but there were a good, like 7 that he absolutely mastered. If he moved from guitar to keys, he was a keyboard player. If he moved from keys to bass, he was a bass player. Moved from bass to drums, he was a drummer. I mean, just seamless.
But I mean, and at the highest level of proficiency. It wasn't just some guy.
Absolutely. No, he was.
It's like if you heard him play bass, you go, this guy.
You would hire him as a bass player.
And then he could go to keys and be that effective.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it was just seamless from one to the other to the other. Amazing.
Okay, so as a musician, I mean, it seems like the people that have been the most creative, it's like they can't not learn other instruments. It's almost like they're stuck and they're fenced in. It's like I need to express something, but I can't do this on the keys. Nah, let me do it. And it's like it's somehow there's some. It must be a giftedness. There has to be.
It's a giftedness mixed with a madness, and that's literally what
But
it is.
how
Because there's
come-
always something scratching to get out, and you
Yes.
described it precisely. It's like, okay, it sounds like this. No, get out of the way. That's not what it sounds like. Let me do it. And then they are driven to become more proficient than the person that they shoved out of the way.
But it appears that they didn't start with the instrument. They just got so frustrated that people couldn't hear what they heard
Exactly.
that they had to figure it out themselves. Like Paul
Yes.
McCartney
Yeah.
comes to mind. Clearly wasn't a pianist, but he's playing. I mean, it's not like it's complicated what he plays, but he's suddenly playing major rock on that and bass.
Yeah.
And by the way, a very maybe underrated bass player as far as the licks are concerned.
Hugely underrated. And to sing the way he sang while he was playing bass, he was actually an amazing bass player.
Yeah.
He was an amazing
Very
bass
tasty,
player.
very unique licks that were not what. I mean, and I'm not a music. I play a little guitar enough to know what I can't do, which is virtually everything. But I think you almost need to dabble in something to be able to appreciate who's good at it.
Absolutely.
Who's really good at it, because only then can you go. Did you hear what he just did? No, he was playing guitar. I said, no. What he just did is almost impossible. But until you're in the game, you don't understand, because it seems easy.
Exactly. It's like watching the game on Sunday. Oh man, you should have cut back. You should have cut back. Yeah. You go out there.
Yeah.
Let's see you cut back with a 300-pound
That's
dude
it.
running 4.6 at you.
Well, that's exactly right. That's the biggest thing I heard. Athletes, especially in football, what they would say is the biggest thing about the pros is how fast they are.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't. It's like you got to step it up so much, and there's a difference. And this is probably equivalent to musicians, I would guess. I told the story. We played Little League. I played baseball, and there was a kid that dominated, and then he went into the Pony Leagues and he dominated. He was in the Colt Leagues and he dominated, and then he went to high school and he dominated, and then he went into UFC and he dominated, and then he went into the minor leagues. This guy was one of these great players. Got to AAA. Great, and he was the Kansas City Royals franchise. He got up to the major leagues for about 10 days.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between minor leagues and single A is a little bit to the double A, a little bit to the triple. All these things are increments until you go to this final step. It isn't just one more step into the majors. It's a gift.
Yeah.
You have something, you can't, because I watched this guy kill everybody except for the final stages. And it must be like that in musicians. There has to be the greatest musicians, and tell me if I'm wrong, what do I know? You are in that game, I'm not. But from what I've seen, the greatest musicians of all time, most of the time you've never heard of them, because they were studio guys.
Absolutely.
They were studio guys.
Or they somehow crashed and burned because being good is not good enough. If you're going to make it to that final level that you talked about in sports, and they're very parallel, extremely parallel. But usually the people that you never heard of that were the greatest ever, and I have a list of people, amazing, you never heard of them. It's because they either were studio players behind the scenes, or more often because they crashed and burned because they thought that being good was good enough. And it's that plus 15 or 16 other things. A lot of things have to go right. Very similar in athletics. Because everybody knew the guy like you knew who was just amazing. And then they finally got to that 99th percentile and everybody's amazing. But at that level, there's the guy who works harder, the guy who thinks more clearly. You know what I mean? There's other stuff other than just.
Of course, but there has to be a giftedness. There has to be, because I'm kind of a Renaissance man myself. I started out as a magician.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
Close-up sleight of hand magician, and made a living doing that in Southern California back in the 80s.
Wow.
I invented some tricks that ended up in books and literature in the sleight of hand community.
That's awesome.
I know some of the top musicians in the world I'm friends with. Then I moved into comedy, and then I'm an actor. I've been in, so I'm just eclectic because I enjoy that thing. But here's what I was going to say, and it's the only way I have any reference point, because I can play guitar, but not enough to even consider mentioning I can play, especially in Nashville. If you come to Nashville, Tennessee, and say you play guitar, buddy, you got some stones, buddy.
Yeah,
because
you better bring it.
Holy crap! Have you gotten in over your head? You coming to this town? Yeah. But in sleight of hand, there's techniques. Obviously, it's like juggling. It's like scales. There's techniques, and I could do some fairly sophisticated stuff. And you start feeling pretty good about yourself. I'm getting some stuff now. I'm getting it down. And then you go see somebody do something, and you go, and you want to quit.
Yeah.
It's like, but here's what I want to get from you, because this is your wheelhouse. It's not just they do it better than you. It's like you sense you have something I can't wrap my mind around. You have a nuance or a sophistication about the way you do things technically that are, I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah.
Or even to navigate it, but you do, it's on another level. I can use all the terms, but there seems to be some other dimension that they have access to that must be God-given.
Absolutely.
It's something that I can't make myself do what you just, I can't.
And they may not be serving God, but God put it there.
It doesn't matter if
because they were God's idea, not the other way.
Oh,
right?
All art is God's, all truth is God's. They just don't acknowledge the creator. But does that make sense to you?
Does.
That you can play, you played guitar for Prince, who's considered one of the top musicians ever, pop musicians anyways, in history.
Yep.
Clearly an amazing guitar player. You were better than him. Obviously, you're a great guitar player. Tell me somebody you've looked at and go, I bow to you.
You know, it's interesting because you start out, you want to be the greatest ever, the greatest in the world, and then you realize it's a really big world.
Yeah.
So if you're serious about that, then you really have to get after it and stay after it. So over time, it's almost like gunfighters in the Old West. You start putting notches, So you get through and, man, he was my hero. When I first started playing, just a quick aside, Eric Clapton at that time was not slow hand. He was the guitar player in a band called Cream, Power Trio. And that was, for me in the beginning, that was it, Power Trios. There was a song called Crossroads. And I said to myself, if I can learn to play that solo, the main solo in that song, note for note, then I'll know I can do this. And I got there. My parents literally thought I had psychiatric problems because I practiced so much and didn't come out of my room that they thought something was wrong with me. And they were right in a sense. But over time, then it was like, okay, you start knocking off your heroes. Not literally, but you realize, yeah, I've actually, reached that level, and some of them, well, I don't know. I think I can take them. It's that thing.
Yeah.
But there were some people that you get to this place where, like the major leagues in any sport, some folks where there's still something they're doing. It's like Eddie Van Halen was one of them. Jeff Beck was probably at the top of the list because he did things, and I could look and watch from, this far away. I don't know how he just did that.
Really?
Because he had things that he did that were technique driven. It's not the notes and it's not the execution necessarily, but the greats, there's something in their hands. And I describe it this way. They're doing what they are. When people are doing what they are, and if what they are is, again, made by God to be extraordinary, and they take that gift seriously and steward it, Jeff Beck was just one of those guys, just like, I don't even know how he thought to try to do that, much less do what he just did.
Is it possible for you to explain to a layman what it is? When you said, I don't even know how you did that. Now, you are a great guitar players, so you certainly know the techniques.
I made the list
So
of best
what-
100 solos of all time a number of years ago.
Okay, so it's not like you're like literally saying, I don't know how you technically did that. So that's what I was getting at earlier. There's something transcendent,
Yes, that's
mystical about this other thing that some people, and very few, get this extra something that the rest of us can practice till the cows come home.
Yep.
I will never be able to do that thing, and I knew it when I saw it. Doesn't mean you can't be great. Doesn't mean you shouldn't be great, and it doesn't mean you won't be more successful.
it. Exactly. That's
Maybe
the other one.
maybe you're a better player. Maybe
Yep.
you're a better musician. Maybe you're a better showman. Maybe you're a better businessman.
Yeah.
But true artists, they will look at somebody sometimes and just say, I don't know how you did that, but I see something nobody else sees. Because to the average person, they hear a guitar and they just think, well, it's just a guitar. They don't know how to pick apart
Right.
the technical difficulties because they don't know how to judge it. They don't have the skill set to be able to differentiate between technical skills because things that are great sound simple.
Yeah. And it's like American Idol. Oh, you know what? I'm going to dial the 800 number because they're the best. Well, upon what criterion are you judging? Because you really don't know what you're judging.
No.
You know what you like, but you don't know what you're judging.
No, that's it. That's exactly right. And I think sometimes that's of course manipulated. I mean, they act like every person that hits a high note has done something that's never been heard in human history. Come on. I mean, so it's all about selling the tech, selling this narrative that gets them advertised. I mean,
Right.
it's just we're just selling stuff.
It's just TV.
But it doesn't mean some of these aren't talented folks. But all right, so I don't want to be all over the map, but you have so much interesting elements that I want to get to for the folks because they're going to love it. I get people from all over the world, so they'll appreciate your experiences with Prince, and we're definitely going to talk about that, and then about you. But I do want to kind of stay, since we're here, in this idea of musicianship, and you talked about the certain folks. Like when I've heard Clapton, and he was given that status, probably in the 60s, the famous Clapton is God thing or whatever. Now, again, I know enough about guitar to kind of, and known enough musicians. So I will say that, and maybe this is shows my lack of knowledge. To me, Clapton was, I don't know. To me, there's a lot of people that did a lot better things like that. You mentioned bass playing, Paul McCartney playing bass and singing. The guy that I don't even understand how he pulled this off is Geddy Lee.
Oh, yeah, Geddy's great.
Because his bass is so complex, it sounds like to me, maybe I'm wrong, and then the crazy songs, how do you sing vocals and are running a bass line? That's like two brain. How do you do
Well,
that?
that's exactly what it is. It's like the, using both sides of your brain, divide your body in half. But every great singing bass player, every great singing guitar player, singing drummer, you have to do that. You have to be able to subdivide kind of your
But can you
mechanical
can you teach
consciousness.
yourself that, or do you just have to be able to do that?
You have to.
Like
that has
that.
to be who you are intrinsically.
Yeah.
Again, because I tell artists that you have artist DNA. I mean, you have, there's the genetic aspect of who you are physically, physiologically, but as an artist, you also have DNA. And that DNA, just like your DNA physically determines your height and all these different things, your ability to do these things is governed by that. However, you have the responsibility and the opportunity to develop it.
Yeah.
So that means that there are people. I'll tell you what. There's a guy named Jaco Pastorius,
He was amazing.
and I knew Jaco. We were managed by the same guy.
You knew him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was a wreck as a human being.
Yes.
But an amazing. I mean, for my money, him, maybe Stanley Clarke, there may be 3 people that could do what he did with bass.
Now, is he the
sing it.
one that originated the fretless bass, or is he the one that just brought it into?
He was the one that mastered it.
So they were people that had done it fretless before. They just,
but now
it was
man,
stand up.
Yeah,
The
the stand-up was
bass
always
is-
fretless.
yeah.
But the fretless electric was,
And he didn't he. But that's what I thought, that he's the one that kind of knock those things out
Yeah.
and said, and then I need it like this.
Yeah.
But that's what I mean.
Yeah.
These guys that said, I can't speak the way I want to. I need
Mm-hmm.
to remove these barriers. Only an artist sees that.
Absolutely.
But let me ask you about two other guitarists since we're here, and then I want to get on to the Prince time. So we can't leave out Steve Ray Vaughan.
Yeah, Stevie was amazing.
And-
Now, here's the thing about Stevie, though. Stevie was not a guy who ever did anything that I was like, okay, I don't know how he did that.
Okay.
Partially, though, because I think we came from players who come from the same sort of gene pool. And
Which is rhythm and blues and
blues, straight up blues for him. That's where I started. So because you understand their musical language because it's a common language,
Okay.
it tends to be easier. But then there are people who start there, like Jeff Beck did, that just transcend it and add to that language in ways that nobody else speaks but them.
Yeah.
To some degree, Eddie Van Halen was that. I mean, I actually had the opportunity, hung out with Eddie at a show, one of their shows one time, and he had his own dressing room with a miniature version of his stage rig in the dressing room. So he had an amp setup that sounded exactly like his main setup did. And, you know, we're talking and he's just playing and having a conversation, huge, like, cooler of beer. And, you know, Eddie, and he indulged in certain things.
Sure.
But it never seemed to impact his playing. So at one point he said, hey, you know, you want to try this guitar. And it was the guitar. It was that homemade painted thing.
the red one with the
yes, it was
like
that
tape
guitar.
stripes on it.
So it's like he just asked me if I want to play that guitar. What am I going to say? But yes, let me try it. But as soon as I picked it up and started playing it, it sounded like me. It didn't sound like Eddie. And I'm talking about everything, tonally, sonically, because guitar is a human instrument. And what's here determines what it sounds like as much as what's here.
So you would put him in a special category then? It's not like he's not overrated then?
No, and it's not that he wasn't Jeff Beck. He wasn't Jimi Hendrix. He wasn't
Jimi Hendrix, by the way. Let's not leave him out.
Oh, we won't. We can't.
Is he what everybody says he was? Did he really break the mold and create a whole new way to think about
He
it?
jumped 20 years ahead of everybody
Okay.
else.
And what was he doing that was so unique?
He took the instrument beyond the bounds of how it had been conceptualized up to that point. Because really, it had been primarily a rhythm instrument. The idea of guitar being a lead instrument was still fairly new. And the people that Jimmy came up backing, you know, Little Richard, etc., it was comping chords back behind the bandstand with everybody else. But he not only started stretching that in terms of what he played, but how he played. The things, he took a guitar, a couple of pedals, and a Marshall amp, and got into the age of the creation of the soundscape 20 years before everybody caught up to him. What, you know, guys come out now with a pedal board the size of a Frigidaire, and, you know, they got a different pedal. He did all that with just a Strat, a couple pedals in his amp, and he just figured out, you know, techniques manually, physically, doing things that then people started figuring out, and then invented pedals to enhance it and all that stuff. He was the man that fell from the future. That's who he was.
And wasn't he, and again, maybe this is urban legend because I don't know the depth of your world like Henry, but didn't he kind of be the one that originated or at least really began to focus on feedback and utilizing feedback as tonal instrument?
He harnessed it, and you hit it right in the head. He played feedback. He wasn't, the first recorded instance was a guy named Link Ray on a song called Rumble. That was the first recorded instance of feedback. Jimmy, and you know, that back then feedback was kind of accidental, and guys kind of thought, well, that sounds cool. But Jimmy figured out a way to make it part of the musical vocabulary.
Right, he could manipulate
and use it as an instrument.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, as a 14-year-old kid, I was fascinated with, so I imitated it. And that's kind of what got me to the party early on. This urban legend broke out in the Twin Cities. There's this kid that plays just like Hendrix. So I had a booking agent by the time I was 15. Couldn't drive, but my
So
calendar
you were a
was
killer
full.
guitar player at that point. So
Yeah.
would you say you were a prodigy, so to speak? Like you were doing it way beyond your age?
I mean, now I realize, I was. As my dad had been before me, I found out later.
He was a
on a
musician.
different instrument. He was a sax player.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool. So So now that you have been around such great titans of this musician, and you're in their world, and you feel comfortable that I can play with you guys as well. Maybe, I don't know, not as famous, but I can do what you can do. Are you able to objectively look at your playing and go, you know what? I'm pretty dang good at this. I'm not afraid or intimidated by anyone. I'm not saying there's not a guy or two. Well, Jeff Beck apparently sounds to me like he's your hero. So
he's definitely one of them. I mean, it's in everything. Wisdom is a coefficient of time. There are things that will only happen over time, no matter how bright you are, no matter how many amazing experiences you've had access to. There's some things that you don't see until you see it. It's perspective. So with that, and in anything, it had to be the same with your career. There's an element of confidence that borders on insanity. Otherwise, you'll bomb out before you get there.
Yes.
So you take those two things and you get perspective on your confidence at a later point, along that continuum. And at that point, I look back and I was like, well, yeah, dang, I actually, I not only did I belong, but, the people who have said, well, man, you were in the top whatever, okay, I can see that now. You still feel like Forrest Gump sometimes, but you can see it objectively.
But you were never able to compare yourself to your peers when you were in the game and kind of go, look, I can do I'm as good as these guys.
Yeah. That's part of that insane confidence.
Well, but it's true.
And in the Revolution, that insane confidence was like our stock in trade. Everybody in the band was like that, especially the three front guys in the band, Prince, Andre Simone, and myself. We thought we were convinced we were better than anybody, anywhere, anytime.
But it shows.
Yeah.
I mean, that's also an element of the way God creates us. It's almost like you believe something and it becomes reality. Like
Absolutely.
You bring it into existence.
Call
and I'm not
things
doing
that be not.
Yes. Well, and it's funny because like as a comic, a stand-up comic, it's different because it's not a manual technique. One of the things about musicianship is in a band, the one thing I feel like, and I don't know, I've never been in a band, so maybe I'm making this crap up, but I'm going to just say it because it's my show, I can do what I want. But I feel like if you're having an off day, I mean, here's what people don't, and I think about this with athletes as well. We go to watch a show, I get to see, if you have a favorite athlete growing up, or baseball was what I loved, but you go to watch, there he is, I'm going to see him. And you don't know that his wife didn't call him that day and say, I'm getting divorced, or he's feeling sick, or his kids got in trouble, or he's just, I don't feel like playing today.
Yeah.
But you have to.
That's right.
This is your job, and they paid to watch you go do that thing. Obviously with a musician, but I think to myself, if you're just not feeling it today, you still have to do it.
You do.
But it's almost like, unless you're the lead singer, you can kind of lay back and go, guys, I'm going to let you all take care of it today. I need to kind of just chill, and I'll do what you need, but I ain't. I mean, you have this sort of component of a machine to help you get through this and be proficient at it. Comic, I got nowhere to go.
It's you and the mic.
I got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
A mind, a mouth, and a mic.
Yeah.
That's all I got. And there's nowhere to hide. And if you're eating it, you eat it alone until you're done because you got paid for 45 minutes or whatever you're charged. Now, I'm not giving myself any extra credit. I'm just saying that's one unique thing about being a solo artist. You got nowhere to go. You got nowhere to hide.
Nobody split the money with, though, but that's the,
Amen.
that's the upside.
Amen. And you don't have to do a 2-hour mic check either.
Right. I actually left the band over sound checks, but that's a whole other story.
Well, they're ridiculous. But here's one thing I've said: if people were to ask me, and it's, I guess it's my 30 years of this, if I was trying to summarize, like if a newer comic says, "Well, can you give me some tips?" And of course, in some ways, no. In some ways, no.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
got to get up on stage and do it and figure it out because there's no shortcut in stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
You either can do it or you can't, but more importantly, you have the courage and the wherewithal to have people hate you.
Exactly.
Nightly.
Yes.
Until you figure it out.
Yeah.
Now, most people can't do that.
Exactly.
Most people are saying,
Their greatest fear is being rejected.
Yes.
Well, you might as well just go back home now.
yeah, you are. Then you picked the wrong.
Statistically,
word.
5% of the people in every crowd you'll ever face decide instantly that they hate you.
Yes.
And hate is a strong word,
Yeah.
but you're not going to win them over.
No.
So if nothing else, you got to face that every night.
Amen. And decide it's worth it, because I know that on the other side of this is Oz. I
Yeah.
know I can do this. But how do you know? You just believe in it.
You have to
But
believe
the one
it.
thing I would tell the people, here's how I summarize it for them. I'll say, what should I do? And I can give them some technical things. Find yourself 3 minutes, just 3 minutes that work, so you start feeling comfortable that you can do this thing. Find something you can rely on so that you can keep growing your set. Try to just get solid on this one thing so you build comedy, blah, blah. I can give them lots of technical things. But the simplest trick I say to them, and I realize it's deeper than it sounds, is I say, you know what the magic is? The secret? No, what is it? Have fun.
Yes, that's it.
And they go, have fun. I said, and here's how I tell them. I said, think of this as a performance. I'm going to go in front of all these people. I'm going to do my comedy. Now, they may not laugh. They may not like you. And here's what I'm telling you. I don't care. I don't care if you laugh. I don't care if you hate me. I'm having fun because I'm good at this, and I'm doing it whether you like it or not. I'm delivering this with all the joy and all the belief I have in this material, just like if I was in a play.
Yeah.
Audience, if they're not crying at the cry part, they're not laughing at the laugh part, I don't get to stop and say, well, gee, what did I do? You're in a play, baby. Keep doing this stuff. Move forward. Fourth wall. They're not here anyways.
That's right.
They're not here anyways.
That's right.
I'm not in a play. I'm really here in this living room talking about who shot the butler. That's what acting is. So I say to you, just have fun, irrespective of if they come along with you.
Yeah.
And then you know what happens? They come along with
Yeah.
you. Because they want you to make them not uncomfortable.
They want to be taken. Alice Cooper, the great Alice Cooper, says audiences want to be taken.
Yeah.
And I teach that. I teach performance at one of the universities in the area.
Okay.
I'm the professor of performance.
Which one?
Which is weird. MTSU.
Oh, nice.
So one of the things I teach them is the confidence thing that you're talking about. You get up there and you do it no matter what. It doesn't matter how you feel. The reason you don't have to say, do you want fries with that tonight, is because you're here because they're here. And at the end of the day, they want to be taken. People don't go out, they don't spend money and go, you know what, I hope this band really stinks.
Yeah.
I hope, because I really want to have the worst time of my life.
Yeah.
That's not it. They want you to win, so go out and win.
Well, but I often wonder, though, and again, the only profession that I could speak of with any authority is magic and comedy, because I actually made a living doing both of them.
That's awesome.
Well, and as an actor too, I've been in 25 films. I just don't do that full time, so I don't consider myself an expert in that. But from a comedy standpoint, which is what I have the most experience at, I feel like the audience does pay for you to take them out of their misery.
Absolutely.
They do come here for you to help them because they're not happy, and they want laughter, and they want to bring what they think you have. And so if you come in unconfident or almost delivering something and saying, is that okay, is that good? They don't want that.
No.
I want a guy that knows exactly what he's doing, that's professional, that's going to bring me to laugh whether I like it or not. And they resent it.
Yes.
If you make them feel uncomfortable because you suck.
That's right.
They resent it.
Yes.
I didn't come here to feel bad because you're no good
I
at
could have
this.
done that on my own.
Come on! I want you to make me laugh in spite of myself. That's what they want. Now, maybe a musician, because there's nothing like music. Music is unique in that it is, in fact, the tapping into the transcendent, into the spiritual. Now, I guess everything can do that. Laughter,
But music is different because it can impact spirit, soul, and body all at the same time. Nothing else
literally
can do that.
because you're feeling it.
Yep. That's why it needs to be loud.
Yes.
I'm going to clear my throat. Okay, we're good.
Well, so, oh God, there's so many places to go with. Well, no, because it's a wonderful, it's just a great conversation because this is so important that there is such deeper things. in the earth than so many people want to give it credit for. I've been telling people the last few. I'm getting older. I'm getting closer to moving on from this realm, the three-dimensional realm. And I, like everybody, grew up with this idea that heaven is up here. And then I realized, well, it can't be up here because Australia, that means it's down there.
Right.
It's like so,
Australians are living in hell. That can't be right.
Right. So heaven is taken right to hell. But I realized because we are body and soul, I don't know why this keeps coming in my head. Maybe God's given this to me to help usher me into the next phase of my existence, because we're all terminally ill and we're all going to live forever. So we all have that in common. But I think heaven, the spiritual realm, is actually right here already.
Yes,
that
it's both
we're going to walk through a mist of the three dimension and go, oh, it was always here. It was always here.
Yeah.
We've always been connected to this thing. We're just kind of, it's another realm of reality I just didn't have access to because I only have 5 senses. Does that make any sense?
It does. And like everything that God communicates, and yes, God does communicate, just we don't listen. He is not ambiguous about that. As in heaven, so on earth. Jesus himself was the embodiment of that. And my favorite example of it, I always say this, that God is profoundly spiritual, but he's eminently practical all at the same time, which is the expression of what you just described. So my favorite example of this is when Jesus healed a blind man, but did so by spitting in the dust. And the Bible said he made mud. So here's the thing. Here's a blind man, and he's heard about this guy that can heal him. So he's blind. I always tell people, close your eyes and imagine he hears.
Yeah, right.
Because that's what it was.
Yeah.
But here's the practical part of it. If God made Adam from the dust to the ground, then all the elements of that humanity physically were present in the dust of the ground. Now we have the knowledge, the understanding of DNA. They swab the inside of your mouth, and from that sample, they're able to go in and pull out the roadmap of your DNA. So that DNA is present in your saliva. So the one who is the way, the truth, and the life spit in the dust of the ground.
Which is what we're created from. Dust.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And he made a body part.
Wow.
Well, that's eminently practical. That's not woo, that's practical.
Dude, that's killer. Did you come up with that?
Yes, I did. Because that's
cool.
the whole Forrest Gump part of, I'm going to call you to teach and to preach. God, you got the wrong guy. He's totally got the wrong guy.
Yes.
Why'd you pick this knucklehead that was like high from age 15 to age 20 every day of his life and decided to do that?
I said this years ago. If there is one, because God used lots of different people throughout history.
Oh, yeah.
With different DNA, different flavors, different ethnicities, different temperaments, right? All over the map, which is good.
Yeah.
But I said if there's one quality that everybody had that God used significantly in history, that they all possess, and they do all have one, they were absolutely convinced they were the wrong man for the job.
Exactly.
That's the one quality.
Because if you think you're the guy, you're going to go rogue at some point.
No, you get in the way of yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, God says, I need you so convinced that you are miserable at this work, because then I can automate you.
Yeah.
I can inhabit you and work through you, because it's all I got.
Yeah.
I got to use you screwed up, sinful, flawed people to do the work that you screwed up until we're done with this game, which, by the way, is probably coming pretty quick.
Yeah, it's beginning to look that way.
But listen, we're going to get into the spiritual realm because it's so crucial, and it's so. My people would kill me if I didn't spend at least a little bit of time in this original concept that we were discussing about Prince, just because not everybody has had that experience, and he was very famous. So I just want to get a little bit more into that before we sort of conclude with some things that really matter in the long run. But I'd do a disservice to not use your and exploit you.
Yes,
for that.
that's why I'm here. I'm here to be exploited.
But anyway, so let's talk about Prince. So, would you consider him an icon? Would you consider him one of the top musicians artistically in pop history?
Yeah, absolutely. Icons end up being established. I do believe that the big is already present in the little, and what happens in the journey between what was put in you and what you do with it and where you go with it determines that icon status is kind of like it's Boardwalk and Park Place. And that's something that the people have to vote on. Because there are a lot of people that are legends in their own minds.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? You were born with that in you, but then you did what you needed to do the work so that people could say, yep, he's him.
But you know what? So then you have a Frank Sinatra, let's say. So very, I mean, three-piece suit, you know, hat, whatever. I mean, of course, it's 40s and 50s, a different generation. But my point is, icon, but pretty straight ahead. I mean, nothing flamboyant.
For the times, though, see, no one had ever been there before. So the way the girls were swooning over him then later it was Elvis, and then it was the Beatles.
Okay, but
in every generation.
True. But here's what I'm trying to discern, and maybe I'm missing it, so you show me. You educate me on this. I don't see Sinatra as being flamboyant, is what I'm getting. I guess is the best term. As opposed to later Elvis, not early Elvis, even though his dancing and all that was certainly way out of the box at that time for that state. But you get a Michael Jackson, you get a Prince, you get a Little Richard, you get a Jerry Lee Lewis. There were a couple guys that almost like they really, Lady Gaga, I really want you to know that I'm so out of the box, you got to deal with me. Like it was a contrivance. Like this was something that they had manufactured. This is part of my strategy. Now, sometimes it backfires. You look like an idiot.
Right.
So what makes...
The gerbil suit's not working. So.
But he's very Richard, Little Richard-y to me. If you've just seen the clothes, let's do the crazy, let's almost half feminine, half... I don't know if I'm off the track. But what role does that play in helping you reach that status? Or does it, or does it just happen to go with the DNA of how I just dig this, and I dig this, and I also like this too?
And it is a DNA-rooted issue on the one hand, but on the other hand, there is this continuum where what was absolutely positively over the top and risque in the 50s, Wake Up Little Susie was over the top risque in the 50s. But now... that would not even come close to moving the needle.
Right.
So with every successive generation, and it's very similar to the amount of, whatever substance it takes to get someone inebriated or to get them intoxicated in the beginning, it takes more and more and more and more and more. And culture is that way. But
was that is the flamboyance an act? Was it who he was?
It was both.
Was it his shield to not reveal
the answer
himself?
to it is yes.
Tell us about Prince.
The answer to all the above is yes.
Tell us what nobody knows about Prince.
Because he understood, or he came to understand, the sort of business and methodological implications of how, and honestly, some of that stuff he was taught by other people. I'll just leave it at that. But like I said, he would master things. He was a sponge for information. But what he would do is like the scene in Indiana Jones where the people, all the essence gets sucked out of it. That was kind of how he did things. So he understood the dynamic I just described, that with every succeeding generation, if you were going to differentiate yourself through those kinds of sensationalistic dynamics, you got to go further than the guy before you.
So there was
an element of that.
Yeah, it was a planned formula to help facilitate him getting to the next level.
But it was also in him. That was also part of what he was.
Yeah, I mean, can you just fake that?
And he also knew when it was, he learned over time when it was time to push the next button. I was literally in the room the night that he said, I got it. And these were his words, I'm going to portray pure sex. but I want everybody else in the band to determine. Now, here's how I would say it now. You need to determine what's your superpower, what's your it, what's your differentiator. And you need to identify it so you can maximize and amplify it so that every night you can go out on stage and embody that. Because in doing that, now you move people from bystanders to fans. Now you have the opportunity to move from just being, another guy out there to becoming an icon. Because unless you do that, you'll never become an icon.
But what I'm trying to find out is this show business? In other words, is this literally the business part of the show that he had utilized as a technique? Or do people because not everybody goes with the crazy boas and the stuff.
But so not everybody is that.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is that who he really was, or did he just see this is going to put me to the next level?
That was part of his DNA. So the answer is yes to both. It's a both and. Yes, he saw that was going to differentiate him, but yes, that was already in him. Because you can't do it convincingly. This is another thing I teach people, young people. You can't engage in identity theft and get away with it for long. You can't decide, oh man, I love what they do, I'm going to do what they do. Well, you're not them. So you may become the best imitation of them ever. And some people may embrace that. And that happens with every iteration and generation in the entertainment business. But ultimately, people know authenticity. They know genuineness. And when you're the real deal, that flamboyance, then, it's not an act. You're actually doing what you are. Well, but he did so calculatingly, knowing.
But it's not contrived. It really comes out of an organic space. You said something, you alluded to it, and then you kind of quickly scuttled away. You said, well, he's been taught by other people. Nah, I don't want to get into that. I don't know if that was nefarious, if you're talking about there was some sort of deeper spiritual element that you are almost avoiding, or if you're just not trying to name names. But is there something interesting in that?
Here's what I would say. Every great artist and creator knows a good idea when they steal one.
Okay. Well, then that's but that's not even that's art.
It is.
I have to be able to be influenced by guys ahead of me, because otherwise I can't do anything unique.
But some people are better at that appropriation than others.
Who do you appropriate from?
Everybody around him. Anybody that had
anything
he sure made
worth
it his
drawing
own from,
because
that's the key. I called it his chop shop.
Okay.
He took everything that he took from other people, took it into his chop shop, and if you didn't know his chop shop, you would never know. You don't know where that front left quarter panel came from. I do, but you don't.
I see.
Is that thing?
But I don't see that as being, as long as you have the goods to deliver your unique product.
Yeah.
Then the fact that you were inspired by others is simply how humans work. I mean, there's no other way to do it.
And I agree
That's
with that.
standing on the giant's shoulders.
Exactly, standing on the shoulders of giants. But there's also this confluence of inspiration and confiscation. That some people, there are artists who have, it's been more, but there's also the legitimate side. There's the inspiration side. Being taught by people is standing on the shoulders of giants. Every great in anything, in any area, should be able to do that. That's what it means to be teachable, be a student, whatever. But then there are people who take things and then say that it came from them.
Oh, okay. Well, that's different.
You know what I mean? So
that's not giving proper credit where credit's due. But
exactly.
But sometimes if it morphs into your uniqueness, you can't tell. And I think that's the best way to appropriate. Is it didn't feel derivative. Oh, you're doing. Yeah. It shouldn't feel like that. It should feel like it's your own unique.
Like most artists feel today.
Well, I found out. Michael Jackson, for example, he wore those like loafers when he would dance or whatever. I thought, well, that's kind of different. Apparently, he got that from Gene Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
That's what Gene Kelly used to wear. With this, he literally was like a big fan of Gene. Now, I don't know dance, and I've seen Gene Kelly. He was a great dancer.
He was.
But I never even thought that he would be inspired. And here's an interesting place to go right now. Really interesting, I hope. I believe in truth.
Yes.
And one thing I've said a million times is every time something comes up in this nation that has some friction, because it's a hot button,
Yeah.
which means it has to do with race or sex or gender.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody says we need a national conversation. And I say to people, quit kidding yourself. You can't. You can't have a national conversation if you're not allowed to be ignorant,
Yeah.
if you're not allowed to be inquisitive,
Mm.
if you're not allowed to be curious, if you're not allowed to actually speak what you're thinking so you can try to find some results.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I can't disagree with you, it's not a conversation.
Or inquire about
Mm-hmm.
your difference and not consider that racist.
Right.
Do you see where I'm going?
Totally.
Do you see where I'm going?
And that's why they put me on radio to talk
No,
about
but this is important.
Yeah.
I'm going to be straight up with you. I'm surprised that a black guy would steal dance moves from a white guy, because I'm thinking, just be honest, aren't the black people better at dancing? Now,
Yeah.
people will call that racist. Well, but there's something different in that culture.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up dancing with all my family.
Yeah.
Most blacks do.
Yeah.
That's not bad. That's just part of what you dig doing. We like to do this, and then we like to go have a shrimp boil, and we like whatever. I'm from Louisiana. We do this
Right.
and that. Who cares? But why can't I talk about that? So I'm surprised that he would find interest, and I'm glad,
Mm-hmm.
because to me it's about a human experience. We're all just sort of God's creation. What differences make what color your melon
Yeah.
flavors? But that surprised me, that he went to a white.
Because he was an artist first.
And his dancing clearly had more black rhythmic elements to it than Gene Kelly, which is a little bit more standard jazz, interpretive jazz style. I don't even know if that made any sense, but I'm trying to find, because you're black, so
Yeah.
I'm trying to
I am?
tell me some, well, kind of. So give
My
me
goodness.
some insight about, is there a difference in the DNA artistically of black and white people?
There's a difference in the DNA of people who are true artists and people who aren't.
So that's
People-
irrespective of color.
People who are true artists, at least historically, now that's changed because people have knuckled under to the pressure, that's put on them from the culture and from, sort of wokest ideologies, what I call the unreality cohort, what I call the knights who say no. People who tell you, well, you have to be authentically black, or you have to be this, or you have to be
What
that.
an insult.
Well, it's totally an insult. No, I don't have to do anything. Actually, all I have to do is stay black and see Jesus face to face at some point. Other than that, everything's up for grabs.
Yeah.
So at that time, artists would draw inspiration. True artists would draw inspiration from whomever. And it was because there were people who believed in that more than they believed in being placed in boxes. We had breakthroughs, and we had Motown wouldn't have happened had Berry Gordy not believed that, you know what, the color of our skin doesn't keep us from making pop music. If Jimi Hendrix had not believed the color of my skin doesn't mean that I can't play loud, raucous, what's basically rock music, and on and on. And that's what took place with Michael. And it's definitely, because I was there front and center with Prince, that was definitely the mindset. His whole thing was, we're going to be the Stones. I'm going to be Mick, and you're going to be Keith, and we're going to have that dynamic. And it was always about us being a rock and roll band. It was never about being R&B or urban or whatever box people wanted to put it in. And you had to have the courage of your convictions, because the record label and radio and everybody else, all the gatekeepers, were saying, but you can't do that. You're black, you can't do that.
But this is why this whole wokey stuff is so sad to me, because it's talk about going backwards
Totally back.
in trying to grow as humans. One of my jokes is, people are talking about cultural appropriation. I said, what we now call cultural appropriation, we used to call sharing.
Exactly.
And where I really saw this was there was some clip, of course, you can't escape anything anymore. We're seen by everybody. And if you got a phone, everything shows up. Some girl was berating a white guy because he had cornrows in his hair. And she's like, you're appropriating my culture. And I'm going, how arrogant do you have to be to think, do you realize, I don't know if you know this or not, but do you know white people had hair too for 6,000 years?
Exactly.
And the Vikings and you had long. Are you thinking you're the only people that thought braiding it
Right.
was something we'd never thought of? And so my point is simply this: humans create.
Yes. And they influence one another.
And they
with what
influence
create.
one another. And when and so I understand that there is a difference between hearing a style of music like the blues or jazz that was predominantly in the black community. White people appreciated it, which is a good thing.
Absolutely.
Appropriated it.
Yes.
And got paid for it.
Especially the British.
And got paid for it without, and that's not even using it with my own people. If I say I'm going to do R&B and I'm white, and white people say, oh well, I did that. But if you're stealing my stuff and not paying me, that's not right.
That's different.
And I think there was some of that element of not being given credit to folks or giving them an opportunity.
Or being paid royalties. I mean,
That's all,
that did go on.
Yes.
And there's still kind of straightening all that out.
That's the nuance of the race thing that is more important than the simplistic, myopic, wokey version that this side is always wrong, this side is always right. No!
It's never that way.
It can't be.
Because only God is always right,
Of
first
course.
of all. It's interesting, though, speaking of the musical sort of, whatever you want to call it, the imitation, the appropriation, I mentioned earlier that Clapton was an early hero of mine. Well, his heroes were all Delta blues guys. So
Robert Johnson and whatever,
yes. And all of those British guitar players, all those bands at that time were blues bands. John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, that whole thing. So what happened is this white Englishman who was just devoted to blues took that and interpreted it through his DNA and who he was and his experiences in his head. And what he ended up creating influenced a black kid in St. Paul, Minnesota, who then took his representation, his appropriated representation of blues music, and that was the foundation of inspiration for me then going forward.
Yeah.
So then it's like, well, who, as Aretha Franklin once famously said, who's zooming who? I mean, who? Where's the chicken or the egg in this?
Yeah. Well, and I don't know, isn't there something to be said for the white people who did appreciate, go into Harlem and will listen and go, thank you for this incredible thing. And the truth of the matter is, and this is where it gets so unfortunately sensitive and tricky in America, because it shouldn't be. Please let us talk just like humans. And even if I misstep, if my heart's right, can we try to move into a direction that is uplifting and assumes the best, as opposed to assuming the
and
worst.
we used to actually do that.
Well,
maybe back in these times when the woke babies now tell us, things were so awful and everything was Jim Crow. First of all, they don't know Jim Crow from
man.
From
well, certainly when they try to say it's new Jim Crow. Now? What are you talking
they
about?
have no idea.
Holy
no idea.
What an insult to those who actually endured that.
Yeah.
But it's almost as though you're chastised for, even as a white person, trying to show respect for Rosa Parks or Jackie Robinson or something, as though somehow you're using that to not have to connect to your past, or say you're just trying to avoid it by giving props here and there. You're just throwing us a bone. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
This is a new joke. My next album is called Laugh While It's Legal.
I love that.
But I talk about all the stuff that's happening. That's what comics is supposed to do.
Sure.
We're the ones that make fun of the king and not get our heads cut off. We're the jester. We're part and crucial to culture. We let the steam out. We let the royalty and the peasantry equality. Yeah. Well, that's what our gig is. Yeah. Right?
Say what other people are thinking, but are afraid to say.
Oh, yes. Cowardly, yes.
Yes.
Well, the greatest ironic insult I get after my show is, "Oh, you were great. You were smart. Thanks for your courage. You're saying what I'm thinking." That to me, it's like, say it.
Yeah, exactly.
I need you to say it. I
I
can't do this by myself. You have a sphere of influence you're responsible for.
Exactly.
You're responsible for that, not me. Did I inspire you? Yes. Did I show you what it likes to speak truth at all times? Yes. Am I not apologizing? Yes. Am I trying to let you know that liberty and free speech is literally the most crucial elements to this nation? Because if we can't speak freely, we can't think freely, which means we can't behave freely, which means we're slaves. That's the truth.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, I'm glad glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad it inspired you. But don't leave it up to me.
But now go appropriate this.
Yes!
This you can freely appropriate.
Inculcate this into culture.
Go ye and speak openly,
yes,
please.
go forth and do likewise.
Exactly.
Well, so, I want to be able to have these conversations freely because I've learned this. When you get somebody one-on-one, and they're a leftist, and I always say the difference between left and liberal. I got this from Dennis Prager. Very different.
Yes.
Liberal. We used to use liberal as a
liberalism.
pejorative. Please, God, bring back the liberals.
Yes.
They let me speak. They let me disagree. They actually had a debate. We were actually looking for common ground. That was liberal.
Yeah.
Leftist, Marxist, forget about it.
Firing squad.
That's totalitarians.
Yeah.
That's despots. That's evil, cancerous, demonic evil. And it's killing Americans, killing the world. And, and they are winning at this point without God's intervention. Maybe God's wrapping it up. But you apparently seem to feel that. I'm sensing we're on the same philosophical wavelength, which means that people of your hue, many, will call you, okay, you're Uncle Tom, you're sellout. It's like, how do you navigate this? You have to be going, okay, where do I go now? First, I'm not the color that you've demanded I be with thinks in a certain way. Can't go to the white people because somehow they're racist. You must be in the biggest limbo.
Here's the interesting thing. I refer to myself as the ultimate outlier because back to this concept of us being God's idea, not the other way around. And if we, through humility, teachability, identify what that it is and then do what we are, there's a path that he, from before the foundation of the earth, planned to take you to draw the big out of the little and make you more of what you were always supposed to be from before the foundation of the earth. And, listen to this later. It'll make sense. So the bottom line is, in my life, I've always been this guy. I was this guy when I had to drink from a colored fountain and go to a colored bathroom.
You did?
Yes, in my lifetime. In my lifetime.
Where was
I
this?
lived the first in Minnesota. I lived the first 9 years of my life in pre-Civil Rights Act America.
Okay.
And pre-Civil Rights Act in St. Paul was, similar to pre-civil. My folks were from Clarksville, Tennessee. And we spent time, many summers visiting family. And it was more over the top. A couple times I had to have cousins physically restrain me, or I may have ended up being an Emmett Till story myself, literally. But that stuff, again, so when woke babies are trying to woke-splain racism to me now, I just laugh at their faces because they have no idea. But back to the point that I was making. For me, this epiphany that I don't have to let other people define me. I'm who God says I am and who I believe I am in the light of that, as opposed to literally, legally being, marginalized. Segregated is too mild a word. You can't sit in this seat. You can't use this restroom. You can't sit in this seat in the lunch counter, the restaurant, whatever. But by the grace of God, the parents that I had, all of these elements that God used to bake this cake, I've always been this guy. And then he had me in a place where at the time there were less than 2% black people in the town, the place where I grew up. So I grew up around everybody. And there wasn't pressure to be something other than the kid in the neighborhood that I had always been.
But one thing that forces you to do, and it's one thing I heard Jordan Peterson talk about, is that clinically the only way one overcomes mental issues in sociopathy, those things that are debilitating to you, is you have to confront.
Yeah.
You have. If I'm scared of spiders, you have to be
Absolutely.
put in a position of dealing with spiders. It's the only way you can clinically be healed is you confront your fears, you confront your giants, and you take them down.
And you confront lies. Because for me, early on, it was the lie, capital L, the lie that you're less than, the lie that because
but you
there's
couldn't have become such a man of integrity and depth. If you didn't have to face that
Absolutely.
crap,
I
you
say
had
it all
to
the time.
fight.
I am so happy that I grew up in pre-Civil Rights Act America.
That's crazy.
I wouldn't be the person that I am or have the perspective that I have were it not for that fact.
So you talk about your parents. Obviously, that's crucial.
Yeah.
We just had Paul Benjamin was my guest last week. I don't know when this is going to air, so it may be weeks later. But his entire ministry, he was inner city ministry in Florida, is on fatherlessness, and how it is literally the most crippling element for the by far in culture.
It debilitated the black
certainly in the black community.
Yeah.
Well, he's a black guy, and he's
Yeah.
like this. He would tell me very disturbing things about even the black church, and he would go to try to get help from them, and there's like, no, they're leveraging this. Like, it's like, what?
Oh yeah,
They're
that
one
was,
of us. They're
that
my
was
people.
huge. That was huge.
Well, no, but it's no, man. I want you all to be. See, it sounds like this is how easy.
But the
this is
same
how
thing happened
easy-
in the Roman Catholic Church.
Yes,
The same thing
yes.
happened. I grew up
But see
Lutheran
how easy it is to
initially.
paint,
Yeah.
to make a broad brush.
Exactly.
This is why racism has a foothold. This is how, or prejudice might be better.
It is, and it's one of the things that I try to parse. Racism is the unwillingness to share position in power. That's what racism is. Bias is what we usually call racism. Prejudice, judging ahead of time, is what we usually call racism. But actual racism is a power issue.
Okay.
It's not a bias issue. Here's racism. You know what? Man, I want you to serve on my board. We got a skybox, Titans game. I want you to come out but the real issue is, are you going to give me equal voting shares to you? Or are you going to invest in my deal like you did in your good old boys deal? Or what will your attitude be if my son falls in love with your daughter? That's where we get into racism. The willingness to share position and power.
Okay, but what is race?
Well, and it's almost like the Forrest Gump thing. Race is what people do.
Because in a way, it's not real. It's not. It's
No, it's not.
contrived because
it's not.
kind of because theoretically. I mean, we all know that we're talking about really ethnicities. I'm a Christ follower again, so I don't believe in races. I think there is a human race. I know it sounds like a simple bullet point, but it's true. God didn't make anybody separate and said you are a less human than I made you all. But you're going to take different paths, and you might act subhuman.
Yeah.
You might act beneath the dignity I gave you by creating you in my image. You might do that. You probably will, as a matter of fact.
You have free will.
But-
you have the right to remain stupid.
Amen. But if you really, the simplest explanation of racism is our exterior. Darker guy,
it's the house you
Chinese
live in.
guy, just the thing is the easiest differentiation. You're not part of my tribe because you don't look like me. But in the case of blacks, it's simply a higher melanin. We all know that, and less. Which I always found funny. I said, well, wait a minute. I was trying to find a joke here. I never really found it. But I said, if racism says that the darker pigment means you're stupid or you're less educated or whatever, does that mean that white people who get tan in the summer become stupider?
And that's something that black people just laugh at to no end.
Okay.
So you're getting a perm and paying to go to the tanning booth.
Right.
Has it occurred to you?
So you're dumbing yourself down by dark. Well, and I even but see, the conversations become so sensitive that we can't talk about them, and thus we can't educate ourselves, and thus we can't grow.
Exactly.
I didn't know that black people put on sunscreen.
See, I don't. It depends on the amount of melanin. Because
Okay,
some black people
But some guy got mad at me and like,
Never,
oh,
ever
what do you
have
mean
to.
we don't sunburn us? I thought you didn't. I don't know. How would I know
Exactly.
if I never had curly hair how to do curly hair?
And here's the thing: what people call, what the unreality cohort calls white privilege is actually it's a homogeny based ignorance that all of us have because we're not exposed to the same things based on the homogeny of our backgrounds. It's not a white thing. It's not a black thing. It's not a Lithuanian thing. It has to do with if birds of a feather have flocked together, you only know your flock.
Okay, but Des, let's be realistic. Everybody is more comfortable around folks that act like them, that speak like them, that look like them.
I find that's a learned behavior.
Is it?
Here's the thing. If you take a bunch of just now beginning to crawl infants and you put them in the middle of a carpeted floor with a few toys, they're all going to drool, they're all going to poop, they're all going to fight over the rattle. And it's not in any way racially based or motivated. They learn homogeny from those of us that raise them over time.
Okay. Let's talk about these things because they're so important right now. I don't remember what it was, but one of the famous things that Martin Luther King said was, Sunday is still the most
segregated
day, and of course that's whatever 1962, Alabama. Yep, black church or white churches, they ain't connected.
Yeah,
for sure.
And it's still happening in some places now,
of course,
but by choice.
But here's my question to you. So what you are implying though is, I grow up my people came from Germany. They came in like the 1880s.
My mother-in-law literally came directly from Germany.
Okay, so my people came in like the 1880s. Slavery was done. Immigrated to Indiana, a free state. So I know for a fact I didn't have no slaves.
Yeah.
I know for a fact we were just people trying to figure.
So if you went on Finding Your Roots, Skip Gates isn't going to uncover anything nefarious.
Funny you should say that because David Duke is your father.
Duke.
Yeah, exactly. But when they immigrated, they went to areas like Minnesota, which was, I think, Dutch and
Norwegians, Swedes,
Yes, a
Germans.
friend of mine is Gretchen Carlson, who's from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Who's as sweet or
she's as Minnesota as they get.
Oh my God, she's white, blondie. Yeah. But anyways, she's going to be a guest in a couple weeks.
Oh, cool.
They found a space that was similar to what they came from, so they knew how to farm the land. They had to know how to survive.
Absolutely.
So they went amongst their own people.
Yes.
What are they supposed to do? Go find Apaches?
Well, here's the thing. Different situation in that there are affinities and then there are commonalities, and they're not the same thing. So commonalities are language, diet, custom. And again, we learn those things. I wasn't born with the desire to eat pulled pork and drink sweet tea.
Right.
In fact, had it not been for the fact that my parents were from Clarksville, Tennessee, I grew up in Minnesota around lutefisk and around all that stuff.
Sausage.
And I grew up Lutheran for the most part. So through that sort of homogeny, I could very well have just ended up being somebody that. So what is this? You said this is called grits.
Yeah.
What's a grit? Can you explain a grit? So to some degree, affinity and homogeneity have to do with familiarity more so than it being some sort of genetic thing. Yeah, I'll give you another example.
But you're making my point.
Well, I am.
We would rather be amongst the familiar. That doesn't make me a racist.
But it's a learned behavior.
I'm not going to hang out with somebody speaking French.
Sure.
I can't communicate.
It ends up being a convenience, a practical reality.
And I didn't see black people abandoning their black church and trying to find all these white churches to show how open-minded they were. They stuck with their people too.
And it should never have been a matter of trying to virtue signal about what I am or am not. I mean, again, I grew up as a black kid in a Lutheran church.
Yeah.
It wasn't a black church. Well, we were in a black church and ended up, my mom made the decision, there's too much drama here. I'd been going to a Lutheran school, and she liked the people that she got to know. It had nothing to do with the exterior paint job. It had everything to do with the quality of the character of the people. And wasn't that Dr. King's dream? Didn't it have something to do with the content of character and not the color of skin?
But you talked about power dynamics and whatnot, which usually comes with the majority. Obviously, whoever has the most power and has the most similarities that has been given the power, because we have the same languages and the same backgrounds and the same histories, and then we end up starting or forming a community or a company or whatever amongst my own that I happen to be. Yeah, I'm probably going to lean towards my own that I'm used to, right? You were put in a different situation because you were a minority by no choice of your own, just how it panned out. So you, in some ways, had a more sophisticated life because you had to learn how to navigate these different people, which is a wonderful, mature human trait that most people don't want to try to engage in because it causes you to have to change and to be challenged.
It doesn't force you to have to learn outside of yourself.
So where does that become contrived and almost almost causing more harm than good when we try to force it, affirmative action.
Anytime you try to force it,
busing, where people saying, now I really don't like you people because you're trying to force me into a scenario that I didn't pick this fight. I'm sorry that my people happen to be in control, but I don't mean I hate you. Some did. So I'm trying to find the truth in all of this. I don't think black people going out of their way to show how kind and sweet they are to certain white people. We've seen incredible racism in black people, especially in the last few years. Why? Because there's something bad with black people? No, they're humans too.
They're human beings.
We're humans.
Fallenness
We're
is
all
the issue.
Screwed up.
Fallenness.
But our Christianity informs that.
Well, but here's the thing, though. Whether you're a Christian or not, I don't have to believe in gravity to be impacted by gravity.
Right.
And it's the same with the realities. Truth and reality are synonymous. They're like water and wet. So let me go back to one thing, though. Because of the fact that there are, in the continuum of human history and the dynamics of human events, there are times when action needs to be taken affirmatively. But affirmative action should not be an eternal law. It should have been a tactical methodology applied to reverse an injustice for a season of time until it could build its own, overcome its own inertia and build its own forward momentum.
Right.
Because it should always have come back to the people thing and not the law, the structure, the systemic part of it. Because the whole idea of systemic racism is nonsense. There are people who are racist. There's no doubt about it. And if racist people create and administer systems, guess what? They create them in their own image, whether you're black, white, or otherwise. But the bottom line is those things were never meant, the safety net was never meant to be a hammock as far as, welfare and other things. The necessity for affirmative action, because action needed to be taken. But it was time to stop taking it because it was long overdue.
Well, and
because it needs to come down to good people hiring good people and doing good work.
Well, interestingly enough, that's all. I mean, this is a little off topic, but it just shows the power of that philosophy. That's exactly the problem with the Palestinian issue in Israel.
Yeah.
They've been refugees for 70 years. They've been the longest refugee in human history.
In human history.
Because they're not.
Right.
They've been manipulated so that there can be a power structure for basically Hamas and whomever.
Yeah.
They have manipulated
Palestinian Authority before that.
Yes, because they want to control. Here's the truth, Des. Here's the irony of it all, and it's the lack of it's why it's so crucial. If there's going to be freedom, if there's going to be a return to liberty, I'm sorry, it has to be, you better find God. He's the only one that can show you true north, because you have to bow to something no matter what color you are, no matter what your philosophy, no matter who you're voting for. There better be something bigger that we all have to say, all right, what else will convince you to get rid of your point of view if there's something that trumps it? So when the wokies, when the Black Lives Matter, when the affirmative action, when the CRT, all this Marxist evil begins to rear its head and become inculcated into culture and build momentum, they say we want equality. Well, equity, which is really going sideways. That's even worse.
Equity's worse than equality.
Yeah, much worse because it's false. And it goes against Jesus' teaching. You said the poor will always be with you, and not to covet that which you don't have. Hey, all the answers in the Bible. Just to let you know, you want to know the answer, it's already there, but nobody wants to hear it. But here's what's interesting. They are saying all we're asking for is equality, and we demand that you bow to our perspective until we get it, which is a power grab. You're controlling.
And there was a continuum that brought it to this place, because at first it was, we just want tolerance. Started out with, we just want tolerance. Then it was, we just want acceptance. Then it was, we just want a ratification, approval.
Yeah.
And then it was, we want obeisance. We want you to bow the knee, bend the knee to this, and confess it.
So again, we must think alike. It's fascinating. Why? Because thoughts aren't colored.
Right. And truth, capital T, Jesus is the truth.
Amen.
It's not an opinion, it's not an idea.
But my point is simple, and it's so obvious. The people that are claiming to refugee status, the people who claim victimhood status, are not simply added to be, please bring us to the table of ideas.
Right.
You want power too.
No, I want the
And you
table.
ain't giving it away.
Exactly.
And once affirmative action works, and maybe it gets you jump-started, you're never going to give it back, because I'm never going to give you back power you've given to me.
Exactly.
I'm never going to give you back prestige you've given me. I'm never going to give back money you gave me.
Free money,
Why
exactly.
would I do that?
Exactly.
Because I'm a human being and I'm selfish.
Yes.
So that's the... You need a podcast.
Well, and that's oddly enough in the works right now as you speak.
Well, you should have one. What's it called?
It's called Dez Dickerson is Based, but visually it says Dez Dickerson is Biased. Cross out the I, it's based. Because if you know what the term based means...
What is it?
Google it. But the term based actually comes out of hip-hop culture. There was one rapper that said based is not... It's not a drug term. It means you have your own mind, you have your own vibe, you have your own ways, and it doesn't matter to you. You're not swayed by what other people tell you you should do or be or think.
It's just
now,
autonomy?
every believer should be based. Every believer should be based in the truth.
Base means autonomy.
Yeah, but it's a mindset, and it's a kind of swag, to use another cultural term, because it's like if you see Conor McGregor do his thing, that means he's Conor McGregor. And he doesn't care what you think. He's going to be Conor McGregor. No apologies. And that's what it means to be based. And that's... At this point in time, all the things we're talking about, all the forces, the knights who say no, the unreality cohort, is to get you to comply and not have your own mind and not have you. How dare you tell me you have free speech? No, you don't. Well, no, I'm sorry, but I'm based.
Well, one of the important parts of podcasts and so forth in this new media is because the media is gone.
It is.
The idea of actual journalism and what can be more dangerous to a free society than a manipulation and propaganda of the dissemination of information?
Oh, yeah, that's it.
What is more dangerous?
Every despot has always done that.
Well, first he
history.
disarmed the citizens. Then he started taking control over the dissemination of information.
So the Facebook page right now is the staging area for the podcast.
Okay. When's it going to launch?
It's going to launch sometime in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
Well, it's going to be great.
We're gonna do some preview stuff, and we already are on the Facebook page, which is Dez Dickerson is Based, Facebook.com/Dez Dickerson is Based. So please come follow the page.
We'll certainly even bring you back on if you want to when it's ready to launch.
That would be
we
awesome.
can help get the word out. What are you bringing to the table then in this particular podcast?
Here's the thing. I had this opportunity. God just sort of airlifted me into talk radio, major market, 100,000 watt station talk radio about 6 months ago. And I've been doing a talk radio show that really took these concepts and this ethos and created a context for formatting it. So for me, here's what it comes down to. We are no longer in the age of red versus blue, right versus left, even purely right versus wrong. It expresses itself. Ideas express themselves that way. But here's where we are. It is reality versus unreality.
Yes.
Reality versus unreality. Truth and reality, I said it earlier, are synonymous. They're water and wet. Unreality is the five eye wills of Satan manifested in what I call a pathocracy. There are pathologies. You know, we're accustomed to talking about criminal pathologies and, you know, all these kinds of things. But when a pathology becomes metastasized in a culture and it becomes a hive mind, now the pathology is a pathocracy. The pathocracy, and again, you can go to the Third Reich, you can go to all these things throughout history where that's what took place. It started with a person, then a handful of people, and then it turned into a quote-unquote movement. But all it was it's back to the garden. It's back to fallenness. So my whole thing is addressing it. It's a virus. It's a mind virus.
A pathological and/or philosophical virus that literally controls the perspective that people take. So, would you define yourself with a particular worldview? I don't want to put moniker, on you like conservative or I don't know. I don't want to, but you must have a point of view that's kind of definable. What is it?
I do. So here, the perspective that I share and what I invite people to join me in is it's time for us to be clear thinkers. Not conservatives, not Republicans, not whatever label you want to give yourself, because all those terms have been co-opted. Understand that the first thing we lost control of was the language. That's the first thing we lost control of. You don't lose control of the Senate or the House. No. You lose control of the language, then you lose control or dominance within any conversation. So my thing is this. Not every conservative is a clear thinker. But every clear thinker adheres to what we recognize as conservative principles.
Yes.
And they're principles of clarity and reality. It's all about reality. Yes. We are the clear thinkers, and the unreality cohort is, whether we like it or not, that's where the battle line is drawn. And we've abdicated, especially Christian people, too busy having church to be the church. The salt stopped being salty. The light was under a basket. And it's time for clear thinkers to assert themselves in the culture.
Yes. Well, when I say it on from stage, similar to what you said, I just say it one word different. I said our battle is not black and white. It's not Democrat, Republican. It's not conservative, liberal. It's not atheist and Christian. The battle is the original battle that has never changed: truth and lies.
Yeah,
that's it. Because Satan is the father of lies, and Jesus said, "I am the truth."
Exactly.
That's it. So it reveals itself in philosophies and
absolutely.
As
a man thinketh in his heart, so is he.
But it's about what is true and what is not true about reality.
Yeah.
And of course, that's where the attack is, what the transgender is saying. It's sort of an attack on reality, that I can just sort of make something up. But most importantly, because I always tell people, this was in one of my albums, I said, listen, you're in the United States of America. You can live in a fantasy if you want. You have the right to live in a fantasy if you choose. You do not have the right to force me to live there with you.
That's right.
That's the problem. You're stealing my liberties and considering yourself virtuous. I don't give you permission.
That's right.
I also no longer give people, I no longer connect citizenship with to being an American. They're the same. They're similar, but in that you can't be an American, not be a citizen.
Citizenship is a stewardship.
Yes. And it used to be honorable, and it was something that was longed for, to be a good citizen. But what I've learned now is that people have bastardized citizenship. They've taken advantage of it. I get the rights and the privileges given to me in this nation by being a citizen. I can take from the monies, I can take from the taxes, I can take from the death and blood, sweat and tears of those who came before me to use this, and I can hate America and despise it. That means you're still a citizen. You ain't an American.
Exactly.
If you don't believe in sovereign borders, if you don't believe in limited government, if you don't believe in liberty is more important than safety, if you don't believe freedom is more important than tyranny, if you don't, you're not an American.
No.
I strip you of that title. I don't give you permission.
You're a resident.
Yes.
But you're not an American.
Well, it's like when people come into the borders and then they try to manipulate my faith, or the Judeo-Christian faith, because Judaism talked about being good to the neighbor before Christianity did. It's like, well, we're supposed to take care of the stranger in this. Yes, if you come to my door, I'm supposed to be kind to you. I said, I only ask one thing. What is that? Knock!
Exactly.
Who would let you walk into my house with your family and say, I'm taking over your master bedroom?
Yeah.
That isn't, that's
What have you got to
stealing.
eat?
Well, that's stealing.
It is.
It's a broken,
It's trespassing.
okay, but that's breaking the Ten Commandments. It's coveting what somebody else says. It's breaking the Ten Commandments. It is bearing false witness by saying
That's
that
right.
I didn't deserve what I have. There's 4 or 5 different breakings of the Ten Commandments, which is the foundation of everything that we believe as humans, certainly in the West. So you're going to have a great podcast. It's important. It's crucial. And I'm sad to say it needs to come from your color. It needs to come from people that are supposedly off limits.
People who are outliers.
Well-
People who torpedo the presuppositions by their very existence. Now, here's the thing. People like me get attacked more viciously by people who think that I should be like them.
What are
But
they?
that's what I relish.
Why do they fear dissent?
Well, because no untruth can stand without being propped up by illusion, delusion, falsehood, a 100 other things. If people are exposed to reality, unreality looks really janky really quickly. So they don't want people exposed to the truth. And ultimately, it's the enemy that doesn't want it, because people have the opportunity to go, wait a minute, that actually does make sense, which is why where we are right now, and it's so important, and like any good preacher, I need to close now. Yeah. But the understand that the Zoomer, generation, my youngest is right actually on the bleeding edge of the front end. He's 10 years old, but my oldest is a bleeding edge millennial. He just turned 37. But what's happened is the sort of the trailing edge of millennials and the Zoomer cohort, they really don't have a concept of reality.
Yeah.
In the main. And that's why you're seeing this Palestinian fiction playing out with people saying it's a genocide, and explain to me what a genocide is. Well, it's, I heard one this morning. The Israelis took the homeland that the Palestinians have lived in for hundreds of thousands of years. You made that flat up.
Yeah.
So understand that it's about reality and unreality, because we are losing the battle in earnestly contending for reality. And we have a generation, the truth is merely another concept to them. And it is, and I will end with this, in their minds, it is what they say it is. It is whatever they say it is. That's why we've got to stand up as clear thinkers.
So I'll have 2 more questions for you, so you can believe. The first one is just going to be part of this. The second one will be one that we'll save for those who subscribe, that goes to the paywall, so that I can survive.
Exactly.
And after that, we'll close it. But I want, before I get to the magic question that they have to pay for, I want to talk about the final question. We're going to have to do this again. I'd really love to.
And once I get started, I want you to come on my
it'd be my
podcast as well.
pleasure, because, and it's not just because we think similarly, but we think clearly.
Yes.
And we need.
That's the issue.
And I don't think we even agree on exactly everything. And
No,
I
of
love
course not.
that, because
Of
it
course
helps
not.
hone me into something.
Yes.
You talk about conservatism. When a conservative butts up against, when what I believe is butts up against what is true, I change my belief.
Yeah.
To the leftists, when what they believe butts up against what is true, they change the truth.
Yes.
That's why it's so dangerous.
That is it.
And so what is conservative? Oh, you don't want to change, you don't want to be progressive. Well, how dare you have the audacity to assume that you make something up on the fly? That's progress. You're the ones that talk about on the wrong side of history. Here's how it works. You don't get to make something up and say you're on the wrong side of history. History has to happen for us to evaluate whose side was right and wrong. Conservatism, in a nutshell, conserves wisdom. We look at the totality of history and evaluate what worked and what didn't, what was best and what wasn't, and that's all we want to hang on to. And like Chesterton said, if I come across a field and there's a fence, before I tear it down, perhaps I should first find out, why is it up?
Exactly.
What was it there to help us defend? So I want you to close with this part of it with this. And we'll talk more because I want to get more about the Prince stuff and whatever. But in the end, what really changed, I guess, the trajectory of your life was something that happened to you spiritually that said, you know what? I've found what is true, and this will be the rest of my life come hell or high water.
Yeah.
Tell me about Christianity and your understanding of Jesus the Christ.
Like a lot of people, I grew up in church, but standing in the garage doesn't make you a Buick. I was in Sunday school and vacation Bible school, all that stuff. Went to my mom at age 16 and said, you know what? I believe that God is real, believe Jesus is his son. I don't want to spend another minute in church because I don't think any of it's real for them. And what's real to me is the rock show at the arena, people lighting up those Bics, the encore. So I pursued that, went to the far country and pursued that for 10 years. Got to the point where everything I wanted, my bucket list, all my boxes were just about checked, and I was miserable. I got what I want, but didn't want what I got. So at that point, I was on a Christmas break from a Prince tour. We were promoting an album called Dirty Mind at the time. Proves God has a sense of humor. I'm sitting on my living room couch, 11:30 at night, December 22nd, 1980. And I had an encounter with the living God. Not an audible voice, but as close as I had ever experienced before or since. It wasn't still and small. It was clear he's God and I'm not. But at the same time, so gentle and so understanding. Essentially, here's the deal that he offered me. He said, well, you're doing what you wanted to do, aren't you? How's that working out for you? You know, you can. It's up to you. You can give your life to me. See how that goes, because you know about me. You've been learning about me your whole life. Or you just keep doing what you're doing. See how that works out. I didn't have to phone a friend. I didn't have to pray about it. That was it. That was it. I accepted at that time. And I've come to understand that since there's a reason God came and dealt with me in that one-to-one manner as opposed to somebody sharing the 4 spiritual laws or something, because I'm the kind of person that probably just wouldn't have accepted. Well, I hadn't accepted that prior. I'm just not that guy.
You weren't in contemplation. You weren't wrestling.
I'd been wrestling.
Okay.
Because, again, I grew up in the church. So I knew that there were things that I was doing that this is not pleasing God. And I'll tell you what one of the biggest ones was. Every night before we went on stage, we stood in a circle and prayed. You know, some nights Prince would lead us in prayer. Sometimes he'd have me lead us, whatever. And, you know, there's just a point where I'm like, what God are we praying to?
Wasn't he Jehovah's Witness?
He became a Jehovah's Witness later.
Oh, okay.
He grew up Seventh-day Adventist. Okay. And then became Church of Prince, and then became...
Okay, I just thought I'd heard that.
Yeah.
So God simply just decided to let you know out of the blue. You wouldn't have, I guess you were wrestling, like you said, and maybe we always kind of do, and that must be saying.
And I knew about the church.
Yeah.
I knew about it. Didn't know it, but I knew about it.
But in the world that you were successful in, there's an equal voice.
Oh, yeah.
That will say, oh, by the way, I will give you anything you want.
Takes you up to a high place and shows you the kingdoms of the world.
It's all you get them all.
Yeah.
But you will worship me.
Yeah.
And you said no.
No,
well,
I got
and you walked away from a successful, lucrative career, which would have been much more lucrative.
It would have been much more lucrative.
Yeah.
And it was lucrative at the time. I was doing well.
And you don't have any regrets?
None. No. Zero.
And you know that God, it'll bring you to your knees. To humble you and say, thank you that you love me that much to refuse to let me go to hell.
Absolutely. and to position me to live the life that Jesus died to give me. Because I was on, you put before me life and death, blessing and cursing. I wasn't choosing life. And you didn't have to come grab me by the scruff of the neck and drag me back on. You didn't have to do that. He's glorious and worthy to be praised in such eminently practical ways.
It's not why they call it grace. It's why they call it amazing grace. Because holy smoke, do we not deserve it? And once we reach that place, He can do anything He wants with us.
That's right.
But it's a humbling. Well, listen, I'm going to ask you one more question, and we're going to get paid. This is for those of you who want to subscribe to Brad Stine Has Issues. It's only $3 a month. I didn't want it to be a big thing where you can't afford it. I just wanted you to have some skin in the game and to be able to help me grow this, get more.
And you can't even get French fries for $3.
Exactly.
Are you kidding me?
But you join the militia of the mind. It is a necessary element right now is a peasants' revolt. It's going to have to be the people. We've been abandoned by D.C. You're going to have to join the militia of the mind, the mighty 10,000, those who are the first 10,000 people that give me $3 to say, I'm going to identify as an American, I'm going to identify as a patriot, hopefully a Christian, but you don't have to be, but you should, because, and if not, we'll help you get there. But this is the key. So I'm going to ask you a question that would be, I don't know if it's provocative, but it certainly might intrigue people. So what is the craziest story you can tell me that happened with Prince? Because it's got to be. Well, give me one that.
But there's a lot of them that I will take to my grave.
Well, I'm sure, and maybe you're not even comfortable with that, and I'm not putting you in that position. But if you think of one that would make everybody out there go, "Oh, I wish I knew the answer to that," and they'd be willing to give me $3. Give me just one interesting story that we wouldn't have known about Prince that you would have because you were there. Well, thank you so much for being on. It was amazing. Please come back. I really enjoyed it. Love to get on yours and just continue to talk with like-minded folks who care about this nation, care about what's going on, and care about our faith, that it's the key to all of this. Folks, as you can see, this was a special guest. I'm so grateful for him. Please watch this podcast. We're going to make a special announcement when it's about to air so you guys can jump on. My fans should be his fans, and who knows, maybe some of his folks will like what I'm up to. Absolutely. But this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like when you're a truth teller. It's dangerous, and it should be invigorating. You should care about that, folks. I have said from the beginning in my career, political correctness or cultural Marxism is evil, and it's destroying us. America's dying. Fight back. And so if somebody ever says, hey, I'm politically incorrect, I want you to say thank you for the compliment. It means you stand for truth, and you stand against tyranny. This is crucial. Join the militia of the mind. Join the mighty 10,000, and we will continue to put this material out until God takes me home. This is God's Comic, Brad Stine, and like I always let you know, I'm not doing much. All I'm doing is putting the woke back to sleep. See you next Monday.